for one, it's interesting now because everyone is simultaneously aware of how, like, you're not going back to the Magic, but at the same time, everyone wants the Magic back so bad. It's just a strange world to be in. But, and, the thing that threw me off today was that I got tagged, and apparently Bungie is doing some sort of remake or remaster of the Marathon games. And their, 1 minute, 30-second trailer was awful, just awful, where let's have Prey 2017 with these bright, awful colors. We're going to have like a geisha-faced shooter. And it's just like
geisha
it's got all of these lovely little references to the Marathon series, like, in the heavens they are waiting, and the Marathon signal, the UESC, and I'm just like, oh, this is gonna look at my boomer shooters, dog. They're gonna ruin them. But I don't think everyone's here to listen to my video game review. No, actually, I like
people. There's a substantial portion that's probably
it's a great game, but no, I meant like it's taking the Prey sort of like aesthetic, and then they're just splattering with these bright cyberpunk colors. Not a fan. But we're not here to talk about that. Although, when I first bought my computer,
Marathon was a Doom ripoff, but Matthew the Stout, I said this to him, but people informed me that it was like a much older game that both Doom and Marathon ripped off from. Is that true, Prude?
Well, I mean, there's Wolfenstein 3D is really sort of
that's the one, Wolfenstein 3D.
But you have to understand that, like, Marathon and Bungie in particular had a contract with Apple first. Like, they were a Macintosh exclusive game before they got ported over, and that kind of made them their own unique thing. But I mean, a great amount of storytelling and writing inside those three games. You had your earliest form of Forge mode for create your own maps and stuff like that. But yes, I want to review it, and someone in Pat Casey's Discord said I should, and he'll buy me a copy. So when I first built this PC in the midst of the 2 weeks, just, flatten the curve, slow the spread stuff, I thought, I could be like every other white guy on the internet and make a YouTube video game review essay channel. And then politics called me to the real thing, and here we are. But welcome everybody. Welcome everyone. It's episode 44. We're live both on Twitter and here. I would have my camera on, but I am terribly under the weather with allergies, so my face looks like I've been stung by a bee, and I'd rather not show my face right now because of that. But we're here to, I guess, say that, hey, 2024 is just kind of kicked off for all the shits and grins that we're going to see.
Yeah.
And is everyone just ready? Is everyone ready?
Are you ready? Dun dun dun. Sorry, that's an old Attitude Era wrestling reference. But speaking of those 2 years, I recently acquired The Palliative Society by Byung-Chul Han. So I have to go back to January reviews, but that's actually applicable to my book on neoliberal kitsch and the entrepreneurial self, which I'm knee deep in. By the way, I did complete the geopolitics essay that's in the book, so I will send that to you, Prude. I think you'll enjoy it.
I'm excited.
It's Spenglerian. It's got a bit of Heidegger, and it actually argue against LARPing for other Eastern regimes, like you're in playing Hoi 4 or something like that. But that's a very complicated issue. And he it's funny because I ordered the book and I have to like revise the essay a little bit, because in the end he even talks about how like during the Cvidian era, he even talks about how, they have their own form of like bare life and like, their own form of like political kitsch. Today, China is just as populated by the last man as the U.S. Everywhere heroism gives way to hedonism is for this reason about Junger's turn decidedly against modernity. So Byung-Chul Han, he is a trad calf. He recently converted. He's aware of Trumpism. He's aware of Junger. He has some critical things to say about Trumpism, but I feel like Byung-Chul Han, if you wanted to pick our guy, and I wouldn't say he's totally our guy. I wouldn't want to slot him as a quote unquote right-wing thinker, but he gets to the Icarus's wings of anti-modern thought, I feel. But anyways, yeah, this is episode 43?
44. You get the odd numbers, I get the evens. No, I recently purchased Marty Phillips's new book, Millennium. I'm really excited to read these little vignettes about the early 2000s. So, I mean, I liked his other book, Let Them Request. So I'm sort of excited to see what this book has in store. Most of my fiction reading has been entirely written by our guys. So
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's Dave Martell, Dan Baltic, Semyagog, countless others. All of my fiction reading for like the last year has been fiction published by friends, fellow travelers, and mutual acquaintances, which I think is good. You have to support your friends. You have to buy books from obscure publishing houses like, Terror House Press, Imperium Press, and Mystery Grove Publishing. If you don't buy his books, you'll never see your family again. So we have to be very careful about this.
What's funny is that, so yeah, it's, with Byung Chul Han is, Fishy Frenzy says he's secretly your biggest fan. It's funny when you read something and then you almost like, when you read something contemporary and it's like you anticipate, like, not that you anticipate what they're going to say, but it's almost like startlingly similar to like a lot of my analysis during those days. So I don't know, maybe Byung Chul Han is secretly following the sphere, like, he's doing a Tucker Carlson, because he makes references that are kind of like crazy. It's, who knows, but yeah, anyways, so we are going to talk about a bunch of different things, and I just wanted to Cam, just to, like, I haven't showed myself besides my shorts on YouTube. Also, I don't know, it was about time to Cam. I have this huge pimple in the middle of my forehead, but how have you been, man? So you said you had some allergy issues?
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but like the last 3 days, I've just been stopped up in the face, and been just yeah, it's been bad. But I mean, I haven't had allergies until the transplant, so I just like chalk this up to like weakened immune system means allergies. So
do you think like maybe your donor had allergies?
I don't know. I doubt that, but I deliberately take immune suppressants every 12 hours, so Occam's razor tells me that's the case. But yeah, this is going to be fun, to say the least, right? Is
yeah.
Where to start?
Do you want to talk about child spanking? That was a big discourse.
Oh, yes. The Remnant and everyone else decided to open up a can of whoop ass, literally and figuratively, on the issue of corporal punishment of children. Which I don't know. Like, I was spanked as a kid, and I like to think I turned out fine, which was again an argument that everyone brought up in this sort of discourse. It was a weird overlap of like Nietzschean secular Twitter versus like Christian Twitter for like how to raise children. And I didn't pay too much attention to it because I just watched as Remnant would show off his tweets in the GC, and I would read his threads. And I just thought, what a great time to like pull people along for a ride about the science behind corporal punishment. I think that there's some need for it in our society, and I think that his comparison between certain human ethnic groups and populations, I don't think that holds up nearly as well, because again, it just depends on how present a father is and how present a parent is, and I don't know if that factor was necessarily brought into them. You spank kids to scare them straight, not to hurt them, as Tuesday says.
Yeah, I think Future Moldovan had the best take about like certain populations that like really like abuse their, like beat their kids. It's like now you have to like have a total ban on it, because it's like you can't, like, I mean, moderation is too much of like a concept for other groups without specifying. But it's like I don't know where to stand the issue. I think like I think like BAP had a take like that was supportive of Remnant. I generally feel like if you have to resort to like real, like constant corporal punishment, then it's like there's something wrong there. The dynamic is fundamentally flawed. I mean, when I was a kid, my old man like kind of not spanked me, like, just like a little hit in the arm. What's funny is like he ripped the shirt off my back once when I was a kid. Oh, yeah, like clean off, just like just ripped it. But no, I think that, I mean, I personally I wouldn't hit my kids, but then it's like giving them like a small tap when they do something really stupid in anger is different than like legit abuse, I feel. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like if your kid runs across the road and there's cars there and you tap them like on the thigh, like don't do that. Like, that's obviously different than like a constant like abusive environment. You know what I mean? Like, I personally wouldn't hit my kids, but I don't know. It's hard nowadays, man. It's hard being a parent nowadays. It's hard to raise a kid in an internet society, to quote Tony Soprano. But
at the same time, I see the case. Like I literally see the case for the opposite, because there is a family in my parish. They're the mother and father are my age, 27, and they don't spank their kids. They've got 2 sons. They just had a third. They just had their first daughter. And they talk to them. They explain things out,
yeah,
and
there you go.
they'll put them in timeout, and he'll like explain the reason why they're doing these things, and like. Outside of like the kid being frustrated because like he's being punished and he's like cognizant of the fact he's being punished, it's I look at that and I'm like, damn, like these guys have patience that I don't have, and kind of illustrates a different kind of character that
I was
maybe
bad
I should
as a
work
kid,
towards.
man.
Yeah, I would look back on it and I'm like, yeah, I was a terrible little shit, and I totally deserved what my father gave me.
I would sit there. I would like when they did the timeout thing, I would sit there for hours. I was so stubborn, and my old man's like, "You'd rather sit there than apologize." I go, "Yep, I would." Like, I was bad, man, because I think it was only child. Like, here's
I feel like that's the predication for our Twitter behavior as well. You're gonna stand there with that take and not take the oath. Yep, sure am.
Exactly. A lot of people are like that, man. No, I feel like I feel like first of all, if I ever have kids, I'd probably have more. I definitely have more than one, because like growing up as an only child, like it's a mixed bag. Like me and Billy talked about this once. Like it can help you in a lot of ways, but it hinders you in a lot of ways.
You have no siblings?
No,
I didn't know you were an only child.
I thought people knew this is common
No,
lore.
I did not.
Yeah,
know
I'm
this.
an only child. I know you have 2 brothers, don't you?
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
You know sisters?
Nope.
Oh, that's right. You are the oldest, and your brothers are Zoomer. Well, you're a Zillennial. So I love that term, Zillennial.
I'm not a fan. I can remember 9/11. Thank you very much.
Just call me a millennial. I don't care anymore.
Just please. Like that's my position. But
Yeah, but no, I'm an only child, and I when I was younger, I liked it, but now I kind of realized that it's something that Billy said to me once. He's like, when you're only child, it's like you're like kind of like in an island with your parents, and you're always used to like older people, and that can kind of suck. But then again, it can also like help you flourish in other ways. But I would personally recommend that I'd have at least 2 kids. If you're gonna have kids, have more than one, because being an only child can being an only child can create a lot of like very not good mindsets, mental pathologies for people. But then again, there's detriments to having siblings as well. Like you can hate your siblings. I know people like that. I know people who hate their siblings, and it's not good. But I feel like being an only child, you become like very introverted for obvious reasons. I mean, it matures you faster, but also like it creates like a introversion complex. And I don't know, it's very weird.
I love Vingel's comment here. That feel when no big brother to beat the Foucault and Bastiat.
Oh God.
So good. So good.
That's terrible.
Well, the only thing that so far has really taken a beating, I think, was Twitter's servers yesterday.
Oh my God. Okay, let's get into it now.
Okay, so I'm not going to actually give Musk as much crap because of that, because I don't think Spaces has ever been tested to handle 700, 800,000 people. I know Mario Narfawal's like Spaces can sometimes have 6 or 7K, and those used to have problems. Not anymore, but I mean, 700,000 people trying to tune into a Twitter space and to try and get it working. Did not work at all on desktop. And then when I was driving to church yesterday, I tried having it on my phone, and the audio would cut in and out, and then it wouldn't work, and then it wouldn't retrieve the space, and then it would play it, off with no problem whatsoever. And so you're like, okay, that's fine. But this is, but as Bourgeois Beatnik says, the Spaces is built on top of the Periscope code and needs a major overhaul. But those are good problems to have, especially when people are using it. And I mean, I think this is a good. You can't talk about this announcement without also the fact that Musk is very much in the picture. Before the midterms of 2022 in October, he said that he would vote for Ron DeSantis as the sensible and the sensibly centrist candidate for academic agents parlance. Alongside that, he had said that, listen, I supported Obama. I tacitly supported Biden in 2020, and I think he voted for Clinton. but
oh boy,
it does. He wants to make Twitter the everything app, and so when he was having this big Twitter amnesty, he was posting all of those like memes about lead us not into temptation, about Trump coming back to Twitter. He wants the attention on the site, and I mean, he wants the site to make money. He's gotta get those Twitter Blue subscriptions. He wants your $8 a month, pay piggies. Go to twitter.com, and he's really adamant for that to be the case. And so, what's really interesting here is that it happened. And for us, this media enculturated audience, we're all very much like, let's have it live and dynamic. And then at the same time,
do it live.
Yeah, right. None of that Bill O'Reilly, screw it, we'll do it live nonsense. Instead, it was very much a few softball questions and a stump speech of policy positions, which again, like policy wise, this sounded pretty okay to me.
Yeah.
In the same way that I find Vivek Ramaswamy to be interesting because he's like publishing policy positions and papers on his website. And to me, that's like, it's cool to have that. Like he's never going to win the primary for obvious reasons.
God,
but
no.
I like it when people put out policy, but even Trump hater and Trump voter hater Richard Hanania was like, listen, it doesn't matter what policy positions you point out because the voters will slobber over, the moment that they're on the debate stage and Trump calls him like a desantoid or desantard or something. Like it's going to happen.
Desantroon, I'm seeing.
Yeah, right. So that was fine. The thing that was really the most interesting out of the space itself and his commentary about presidential power was his talk about understanding and leveraging the enumerated powers of the presidency, of Article 2 of the Constitution. And I know my Constitution, but when you have to argue before the Supreme Court or any other legal case here in America, like you have to argue why these things are true. And the thing that was interesting to me was the Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution. This is what came to my mind, where he said, where the Constitution says that the president, in case of has the, I'll just go read the whole thing. He shall from time to time give Congress information of the State of the Union and recommend their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. He may on extraordinary occasions convene both houses, either of them, and in case of disagreement between them. And with respect to the time of adjournment, he may adjourn them to such time as he shall think proper, and receive ambassadors and other public ministers. He shall take care of that the laws are faithfully executed, and shall commission all the officers in the United States. He may adjourn them to such a time that he shall think proper. That would be interesting.
And you Americans with Congress your separation. In my country, the prime minister goes there every single day. Well, not every day. I think they get, what do they get, Sunday off? He goes there almost every day.
The last semblance of Christian identity in Canada, he gets Sunday off.
Yeah. No, but like us in Britain and like Australia, like the prime minister's got to go there and like get grilled every day. So what was the logic behind Article 2 where I'm guessing it's like the federalism separation of powers thing, where if the president were to influence Congress, it wouldn't be a good look. But then it's like with us, like our prime minister is the head of his party. So it's like he's got to be there. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, Americans have such a thing about that. Like it's a big event when they have the State of the Union thing. But like what's the logic behind that, Prude? I mean, you're American.
I mean, so technically in any sort of like civics class, they'll tell you that the president's the representative of the party.
Right.
Because he's the head of it. Like if you've made it to the White House and you're sort of the commander in chief, you're also sort of the head of what the face of your respective political party is going to be, regardless of say Nancy Pelosi or Hakeem Jeffries or anything like that.
Yeah.
But there is a clearly separated division between the two. It's not. There are days where I wish Trump had authority like a prime minister to just say screw it, we're passing this law whether you like it or not. But it's the Constitution. The president's it's not a legislator as the prime minister is. The president's its own separate office, whereas Theresa May was prime minister, but she was also a member of parliament from this respective place.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have that here. Is in the same way that the State of the Union address is reporting to Congress.
Yeah, Justo, he's got way more powers technically than the president of the United States in Canada. You know what I mean? Like he's got way more authority than, I mean, in theory though, because we all know with like executive orders and
it's all in theory. But I mean, at the same time, you have the fact that he can run the administration the way that he wants to by directing the offices of the executive branch to do it. I mean, these are the cabinet positions; those are the officers and ministers that are required to be appointed. And so, he has power to do so. I mean, the problem is that both Trump and DeSantis, and by extension, I'm going to say any other Republican candidate that has a semblance of executive authority, so I guess that extends to governors, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, Asa Hutchinson, and Glenn Youngkin, whether or not he runs. But
Oh my God, what a
default's got a
disaster.
point that, LBJ is the closest thing we've had to a prime minister, because
Yeah,
nothing
that's true.
says
That's
nothing
true.
says putting your dick on the table, like intimidating senators with your own member and telling them that they're going to vote a certain way whether they like it or not. And of course, the executive branch, since the Cold War onward, has seen rapid expansion in its authority, both military as well as
Yeah.
over various executive authorities. Because
Well, it
you
was
could
the
get
height of
nuked
the
at any
Vietnam War
time.
back then too,
Yeah,
as
I mean,
well.
you could get nuked at any time. I mean, we still can. That's why the president still has a significant amount of authority. We don't really declare war anymore. We just sign off on an authorization of the use of military force, and we can do whatever. I mean, Nixon kind of helped pioneer a lot of that respect, as well as LBJ.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like the presidency has a lot of power, and there's a reason why the focus is, and we heard that in the space, the administrative state. I think that both DeSantis's crew, Trump's, and really anyone else has to acknowledge that you're going to have to talk about the fact that the executive branch exists in the way that it does.
Yeah. Well, no, I think like, it's funny because I remember back in like the libertarian days. Sorry, I don't mean to offend. Libertarian days.
We all started from somewhere.
Exactly. The Ron Paul Revolution basically started the inklings of the modern manifestation of the E-right. But I feel like I remember like listening to Tom Woods and in like reading like National Post commentators about, and they would say the same thing about how when you give like a body of authority enumerated power, it's like you say it's temporary, but it's never going to happen. So like, for example, here in Ontario, we have like the GST, right? And then it was supposed to be like a temporary thing that was it World War II under that they had the GST, something like it was some like they were supposed to only be temporary, but then it's like, no, we're gonna have it all the time. And then certain like politicians like really got burned by like protesting it. But that's like one example I could think of. But when you think of like that libertarian talking point, it is true about when you think of it this way of how an enumerated power that is granted in the state of exception just never leaves. Like I think the big libertarian talking point was like property tax was during World War II. It was supposed to dissolve, then it just like never went away because the government's like, well, I guess we're getting money now. So was it property tax or was it something else? I forget. You know what I mean? When you think of, and I think like, of course, even Moldbug talks about this. When you think of like how, I mean, by Moldbug, I mean, he's talking about Carl Schmitt talking about this. When you have a state of exception that creates an instantiation of the rule of law in itself, then it's like it slowly and quietly just extends into a perpetual state of exception. And I feel like in America, because of the setting up of the way that the Constitution is enumerated powers and separations of powers and so forth, when you have like these states of exception that come about, like for example, during the Cold War and the expansion of government and so forth. I mean, this is where the libertarians are correct in that, you have an unprecedented expansion of the American federalist system that just never goes away. And it's really hard for a president to deal with that. Now, I think, the geo of like 2012 would be like, oh yeah, a president that goes there and says that the government should do less, as possible is good. But now I'm thinking like, well, we exist in this system that came about before us, and it's not going away anytime soon. And I think Trump was the recognition of the American right wing to say that, you know what, actually, if our guy took, the reins of power, then, we're never going to like fully get rid of this corrupt system, but it is what it is. So that's my little rant. What do you think of that as an American prude? Like, here's the thing, like, I know as an American, like, you're an American, but like as a Canadian, I mean, yeah, I'm an outsider, of course, but I feel like Canada, unlike most nations of the world, in fact, all nations of the world, share a unique closeness and kinship, both geographically, politically, and culturally to America that I feel like I don't have a total right to talk about American politics, but I have at least some right.
Well, I mean,
Talk about as America's
by
hat.
geography and history's sake, I think that
Yeah,
Canadians and the English have more rights than anyone else to give commentary on American politics.
exactly.
But that's just my maybe my Anglophonic bias in that respect. But like I think that there's a lot to consider. That yeah, you're right. If this were 2012 me, who just like saw Ron Paul for the first time at a rally and was like totally ready to go read Friedrich Hayek and The Road
Oh,
to
yeah.
Serfdom and talk about Capitalism and Freedom by Milton Friedman, then like I'd probably have a totally different position on the state of affairs now than I do today. But if there was one thing that the libs were right about was that pipelines that quote unquote radicalize people, then they're very real, right? Then that was the one thing that they kind
100%.
of shot down. But I think that at the end of the day, right, the presidency as it is definitely evolved into having more power. And I think the real depressing factor, though, is that George Grant was right. It was that after the Second World War, the Americanization of Canada really came about, and it was
As
just really
Bartholomew said in the chat,
yeah. I mean, it was really terrifying to see, and I mean the same thing has happened with Tony Blair in the UK. That's why there's such a fixation on him, is
the
because
Dark Lord,
the Dark Lord
Tony
of
Blair.
the of the
I
UK.
think AA secretly admires Tony Blair. In my opinion.
How can you not? The dude understands power so well, and he's like using the British version of Richard Spencer, Keir Starmer, leader of opposition of the Labour Party, as this little meat puppet to talk about the needs to contemporarize and make Labour strong again. It's not secret. Everyone like that side.
Like, Tony Blair is so evil, but he's an evil genius.
He's an evil genius, and you're like, if you were a Machiavellian, if you're someone that says screw morality and this is how I'm going to achieve like pure technocratic power,
he bent all of.
It's not secret. It's open.
Yeah. He bent all of like post-Thatcher British politics to his will in both parties. Like, that's astonishing. That's like incredible. Like, the British system, people don't realize the history and the bricolage of rule in Britain, in the UK. And the fact that like Tony Blair, again, I don't admire him. Like, I think he's evil, but I think that the fact that he managed to bend and contort the British system to his will on both sides of the aisle, that's like incredible. That's like a world history accomplishment. Not to say that, not to give him too much credit, but I think that's why AA probably secretly admires him. But
it's not secret.
Yeah. The Dark Lord. I love when he says the Dark Lord. It's funny when he says
all of this from a series.
Keir Starmer, like in him, and then John D goes like, Starmer's just terrible. Like,
it is secretly a desire to emulate power and to do it. I mean, why? I mean, if you want to study how it works, I would study him and the fellas behind that made FDR's administration go round. Like that, him, Tony, LBJ's cabinet, and like Tony Blair are some people that you would definitely want to study for how political power works in Western democracies.
Exactly, but notice how both came about after a major political crisis, because the UK, like after Thatcher, experienced not just an economic downturn, but also a crisis of legitimacy in terms of rulership. And of course, I mean, while there was the Diana thing, but like then of course with LBJ, I mean that's America was going through several crises of power at that time, from the Cold War to the Vietnam War to Kennedy getting his wig split and onwards. So I mean, who knows how much LBJ had influence over some of those events. But LBJ is again another dark Machiavellian figure that I feel did a hell of a lot more damage to the fabric of America, more than a lot of people consider. Because I feel like people, they hyper focus on media spectacles. Like, I mean, the leftoids will focus on, Reagan, and I guess the right wing, I mean, it's funny, I don't see a lot of LBJ bashing more than he probably deserves. I don't know. I think like maybe just the American rightist. I mean, I don't know. Fox News didn't tell boomers to like hate to hate LBJ. Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite. I don't know, because in some instances, yes, he is a Machiavellian who knew how to get power in the way that he wanted to pass legislation in his time in office as president. But at the same time, I think that there is humanity in LBJ, and I know that may not be a popular opinion, but there was, and I think, I don't know how true this story is. It's one of those stories of the 1960s, of wherein he I saw that rare bit. We'll get into that in a minute.
Oh boy.
Yeah, LBJ is responsible a lot for the Great Society, civil rights, immigration, and things like that. But the thing about him is also like, and this is not to ever give excuse for those things. I can't give a rare bit that's funny. I give LBJ a pass because he killed Kennedy. That's hilarious. No, he does have humanity in the instance that I think he was racked with guilt by the war
by killing Kennedy.
No, by killing a bunch of young boys in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah,
but nowadays, McNamara's morons is just like official policy of the United States, because we keep lowering the ASVAB standards to go out. But the foundation does really come from Kennedy and FDR as well. But
we bombed neither here nor there. Like
we can't do it. he is entirely responsible for a lot of the awful shit that we've gotten today, and remade the presidency in his own image.
When was the Immigration Act under him?
64 or 65.
And also that was under him, right?
Yeah, 65.
So
he signed it into law, and a nice photo op right in front of the Statue of Liberty.
I think Norman Rockwell did a painting of him with the Civil Rights Act, which again you will read about in my book on neoliberal kitsch.
When did he die? I just need to.
Norman Rockwell died in like the 80s, I think.
He died in 78.
Yeah.
Born in 1894. That man lived a long life.
Oh yeah, he did like, I believe, 180 covers for the Saturday Evening Post. Which, I mean, what's funny is that like America doesn't have like those hokey like folksy Americana thing, like the Saturday Evening Post was like that. You know what I mean? Like it had the Rockwell paintings, illustrations. It was like sort of a uniting thing. I mean, even Time Magazine, unfortunately, I mean, look at Time Magazine nowadays, but even Time Magazine was of monumental importance in terms of like what constituted America. Like here in Canada, the National Film Board was like that. The CBC was even like that for a time. Although, I mean, like all these institutions have just totally soiled themselves now. But in terms of like national character, like when people think of Americana, they think of like the Saturday Evening Post. For I mean, maybe boomers, but what do millennials and Zoomers think of when they think of America, besides like George Bush, economic downturn, the Twin Towers? It's really Oh no, they'll think of like the George Floyd mural. There you go. That's what they think of when they think of America now.
And like, so we talked about this too on Oren McIntyre's show, where they're like 1 in 5 Gen Z kids identifies as some kind of LGBT, but the numbers of people that actually practice those kind of acts are still within the statistical averages of like 2% or less. So it just illustrates that the Gen Z has been they just go. They respond to social incentives to what is done that way. Which, I mean, there you go, right? That's the way. 9/11 country songs are millennial Americana. Absolutely, Cody Browning. I've heard. Have you heard
an American?
That one.
And, you've heard
that, and Have You Forgotten? And
what's the big Toby Keith one? Something in something USA.
Courtesy.
What's the other one? The country one? It's like not God Bless the USA, but the other USA one. Something in the USA.
American Soldier.
Was it that one?
There was American Soldier, and then the big one about Brought to You Courtesy of the U.S. Right?
Yeah. Then there's like
the Red, White, and Blue. That's one, the Angry American song by Toby Keith.
There you go.
I've seen Toby Keith live more times than I'd like to admit, by nature of being a military brat.
What's funny is that like the military in the 2000s in America, there's this whole like revival of nu metal at this time, because there's a very interesting relationship between like nu metal and the American security state. How like not just commercials. I mean, we all know the like using the album Sinner by Drowning Pool and Gitmo, the recruitment ads that had what's his name, James Earl Jones. Was it James Earl Jones that had the Godsmack song? Where it's like, I wrote about that in my
James Earl Jones, the actor.
he did a voiceover for this recruitment ad for the Navy, and
see.
it had the Godsmack song.
Navy ad.
Just type in Navy ad Godsmack and you'll find it. And it's funny because I wrote about it in my obituary to Colin Powell. That I said, like, you know, the tagline of it was "Accelerate Your Life," and it's like I had this whole like thing of it, but it was like, you know, you'll know it when you hear it. The Godsmack song, was it?
Yeah.
Not "I Stand Alone." It was it I Stand? No, it wasn't "I Stand Alone." It was another one. It was like dun 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 dun, dun the U.S. Navy, accelerate your life. Man, why can't they have recruitment commercials like that nowadays? Instead, they have like impossible women on recruitment commercials.
Although I do have to appreciate their recent attempts to have the chuds represented in recruitment advertisements. They're trying so hard to keep. Well, it's the Army that is struggling the most out of all the branches. The Navy narrowly made their recruitment quota for 2022 by 42 recruits, whereas everyone else is severely lacking. And
42 make-work jobs right there.
There you go. Not to mention, on top of that, you have the famous tweets about the ASVAB number of people trying and things like that. It's been an interesting time. Bring back possible women. Absolutely.
Nationalism. Duty nationalism.
Actually, yeah, real women would be preferred out of this. Top Gun Maverick helped a bit. Kelp. Oh, I'm sure. But
is physical kelp single, by the way?
I think so.
Okay,
you two can deal with that in the DMs. Yeah, right. Top Gun Maverick helped a bit. I'm sure that it did. Although I love the backdrop for how that entire film goes. It's just like, we're going to bomb a nuclear enrichment facility that's done by the Iranians, and we're going to do it by violating their airspace, and hopefully no one will catch us and things like that. And it's just like, all this for another country's foreign policy efforts in the Middle East.
You know, it's one of the greatest
for Israel.
Exactly, like one of the greatest. Oh, my Navy's doing best because flat people can float. Well, no, it's funny how one of the greatest war movies they ever made in the recent era was Black Hawk Down, and that was like straight up.
That is such like that's such a great PR win for a military snafu in Somalia. Like, how do you not look at that movie and be like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to go mow down a bunch as a special forces guy in the backwaters of some African country.
Like Jamie Lannister, his character, the actor that played Jamie Lannister, like when the Delta Force guys that basically went on a sunset mission to make sure that the convoy was going to get there in time. When the second Black Hawk, when Super 6, was it Super 6-1 or Super 6-2 that went down? I know because for a time I was obsessed with the Mogadishu thing when I was younger, so I would
it's a great movie.
Research the whole thing. Yeah, it's a great movie, and it's pretty close to the truth, although it does have it is a USG propaganda film. It's a recruitment film. But it's way less over the top, I feel, because of the actors that were in it than other, by the time you get to the 2010s with the Iraq War, by the time they make the Bin Laden movie, it's nobody has tolerance for that type of stuff anymore. Like the whole what was that movie called? Something, the one where they supposedly caught Bin Laden. But,
Zero Dark 30.
Yeah, because those films are kind of like bro, they're in the same category as the Fast and Furious films. They're like bro films, and that really doesn't have the same heft that Black Hawk Down did, that had the actual, the drama. Do you remember that one film that was essentially made by the US military where it was, and it did have kind of a base subtext because the Al-Qaeda terrorists were getting through the southern border. Did you see that one? What was that called? That was
I don't recall.
That was legitimately.
Do you mean Sicario?
Yeah. That was legitimately made by no. See, not Sicario. It was another one where the U.S. Navy SEALs had to go to the southern border because terrorists were getting through the southern border. Medal of Valor. There you go. I think that was the title. But Tears of the Sun was a great film.
Zero Dark 30 is a girl boss recruiting vehicle. I will always appreciate the who was it? Adam Friedland's bit about the CIA Hispanic ad. It's so funny.
There's a lot of Hispanics in the U.S. military. That's like the main. Yeah.
I mean, it's still. Things are relatively segregated, but they are, but they aren't. But yeah, there's still a large population there of them alongside whites and everyone else. But yeah, it's mainly one demographic over the other will definitely be going into combat first.
You ever watch Savages?
No, I have not. I have not seen Oliver Stone's Savages.
Active Valor. No, Savages was like, I don't know. It was all right, like the cinematography, but then it also had like a poly relationship where Blake Lively was it Blake Lively that was like the pass around girl between the two guys? So it was kind of like, I understand where Oliver Stone was going though, with like, the ex-Afghan veteran that becomes like a weed dealer. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Does that movie provide like a hick-lib origin story? Veteran becomes a weed dealer and the need for Medicare for all. And,
no. It's like he's best friends with like a hippie guru guy. That's like, they both find this like strain of weed in Afghanistan that they cross-pollinate with BC bud, and they create this like super potent weed. Then they get caught up in the cartel wars, and of course, like they're in a poly relationship with Blake Lively. I think, was it Blake Lively or was it someone else? I forget.
What a disaster!
Yeah, and it's like then they even have like a 3-way kind of scene where they're all high, and they're like. They're like, might as well just have a 3-way.
This sounds more and more like a Father John Misty song than anything comprehensive.
Sorry, not a 3-way. Sorry, when it's two dudes, it's a train. A 3-way is with two women.
Or the Devil's Triangle, but anyways.
Yeah, the Devil's Triangle.
Good Lord.
You know what a train is, right, boy? You know what a train is? That was, by the way, I love Training Day. That's such a great film. Like, Denzel Washington did a great job. He's like, you come to this neighborhood, boy. You know what a train is, right? You're gonna run a train on your girl. Like,
Lord,
man.
have mercy.
No,
when it's two dudes,
it's gay.
Generation Kill is absolutely true. Training Day the close. Generation Kill's the closest thing you'll get to Breakfast with the Dirt Cult. Made into.
But it was also real, like the sort of like actually being.
Have you read the book?
I've read passages from the book.
You really do need to read Generation Kill. I mean, Sam Finley's book's fantastic, and you absolutely should read it. But you should read the book Generation Kill before the movie adaptation.
It comes close to the actual experience of like what like veterans talked about when they were what it was like in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah.
Yep.
Same with Jarhead, I guess, but Jarhead was kind of like.
Jarhead took liberties.
Yeah, it took liberties. Like Jarhead, they tried to LARP Sergeant Hartman. That one scene that was kind of off-putting, because like nobody can play Sergeant Hartman better than Early Emery. But it's funny. Early Emery was in those Vietnam films that were basically kind of like action film, like bro films, are kind of like Chuck Norris fests, where it's just about like
he made the military so cool. With the History Channel Mail Call and all the weapons and like history facts about the U.S. military. That was some excellent recruiting media right there. Was just the absolute delight of R. Lee Ermey just like walking around with a Thompson or a BAR going around and illustrating why these weapons were the superior.
These boys were packing some heat back then. Yeah, that's great.
And Restrepo is a great documentary. You should watch that if you haven't.
I've heard of Restrepo. Yeah, I've heard it was pretty good.
Because that was a very good documentary and highlights a lot of the stuff that those guys went through on the lines out in the hills. It's a mess.
I feel like we talk about Iraq and Afghanistan a lot because people really don't realize how much of a filter it was for America, like millennial America at that time, but also the world picture of the American empire. I feel like it's during the Obama years, like we said, there was this great forgetting of it. But now I feel like, especially with 2024 coming around, we can sort of like have an emporium on like, okay, what happened in what happened in the 2000s leading up to the 2010s.
Well, there will be, regardless of whether or not Biden is the nominee for the Democrats in 2024. I know he's announced that he's running again. How
Oh, God.
absolutely terrifying because of age. I mean, he'll be like Reagan was getting bad into the second term, but I mean, we just rolled in, and we talked about this last week. The lecherous, almost soon the soon non-Nigerian 90-year-old Dianne Feinstein, who famously was alive to know Harvey Milk when he was murdered, and was around to see Jim Jones and all that stuff. And so now
she was holding up the welfare checks during the LA
she
riots.
sure was.
Yeah.
Telling you about the board of directors in San Francisco. But anyway,
if everyone calms down, we can have order. I remember that documentary in the LA riots where she's holding up the welfare checks. Oh,
remember,
boy.
it's the Gibbs. It's the Gibbs that can hold order. You can restore order through Gibbs me that's, but something that we should know. Yeah, Biden will die on the debate floor if he runs again. He has sold his soul to forces that are far darker than things like that, and so I find it hard to pity him.
In 2 days, it's someone's the birthday boy in 2 days, eh?
It's his birthday in 2 days?
No, another Dark Lord.
Oh, Tony Blair's?
No, Henry Kissinger's turns 100.
That's true. His 100th birthday is in 2 days.
Oh my God! Can you imagine if he drops before?
No, he'll make it to 100. He's
gonna make it
after. If the situation in Russia gets any worse, then he'll die, and then things will really get into a panic because the guy that more or less sculpted this world order that we're living in will be
he'll be the flesh puppet of Belial.
It'll be so over. But so no, I mean, even if Biden isn't the nominee, what will get litigated, what will get re-litigated in the same way that Trump took Jeb Bush to task over his brother. I mean, Afghanistan will be relitigated in 2024 and on the debate stage, both in the primaries and in the main presidential debates, because you cannot escape the image of a bunch of Afghans cleaving and trying to climb onto C-5 cargo planes and falling off in the air by 100, and so by the hundreds of feet and dying and getting splattered on the floor while the Taliban take advantage of all that equipment that was left over. It's not a good PR bit for any president that is running, especially if it's Trump versus Biden again, right?
Well, they tried. Well, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just think that you're going to see it get relitigated. And I mean, foreign policy now more than ever is going to be relitigated. We saw this with the Trump town hall. He says he's going to end it in 24 hours, which I don't think you really can. But it does illustrate that there are these odd diametrically opposed positions that are still within the same sort of ideological camp about how do you run a large hegemonic power. Whereas Trump or whoever was whispering in his ear was cognizantly aware of the concept of buck passing in foreign policy. And then at the same time, you also had the problem, of course, of dealing with, we have nuclear powers that we actually have to deal with respects to Russia, North Korea, China, and whoever takes over still will inevitably inherit the mess of this administration, and really the last three administrations, Biden, Trump's, and Obama's, and I mean by extension Bush. But Obama really kicks things off with his 2011 pivot to Asia. Yeah. So those are a thing. Kissinger-like figure that held all the European. He didn't die right before World War I, but that's famously in part of who my profile picture is about. It's Clemens von Metternich, the Austrian concert and diet or Congress system of Europe, the concert of Europe after the Napoleonic conflict. A diehard reactionary, was very adamant about silencing the press and trying to rebel and to ensure that the regime change revolutions of 1848 did not happen. There was a relative peace within Europe. There were still numerous wars in the Balkans, of course, with the Ottomans and the Russians. But nevertheless, Western Europe, as we know it, was fundamentally impacted by Metternich's system. And I mean, whoever after Kissinger dies, he will be treated the same way, which I think is kind of fitting because Kissinger really was the American writer for understanding Clemens von Metternich. That was his first major paper he ever wrote. His thesis, his senior thesis on Metternich, which later turned into a book and biography. That man is the influencing thinker for Henry Kissinger. And if you want to understand Kissinger, you do have to read a good biography of him.
Well, talk about Metternich, talk about a man who embodies this sort of in a winter period of civilization, the sort of Spenglerian tragic hero of a man that like stood at the gates of Pompeii when the volcano is coming down. Like, talk about a figure like that. I think, as much as I don't want to lionize him, as much as he has done incredible evil in the world, I think Kissinger kind of is like the Spenglerian figure of, the general at Pompeii that refuses to leave his post. And I think that the world order would look quite different without Henry Kissinger. And I feel like it would take like a more of a brainiac than me and you and most people to like truly parse out a history of that, like the theoretical history of like, what if Henry Kissinger never existed the way that he did? Would the world be a better place or a more terrible place? I mean, we can't really. It's like something. It's funny. It's something Conscious Oracle said once about, when I asked him on my show about, what if the history of South Africa went differently than apartheid or when it collapsed? He goes, well, Gio, I don't really like to talk about this theoretical things because it didn't happen. So it's like you have to realize the reality we live in now. And it's like that's where you build from. And it's true. It's like very true.
Yeah, it's like trying to imagine what the world would be like if Adam and Eve didn't.
Exactly.
Like you can't imagine that because that never happened.
Yeah.
And we can't ever envision a world like that.
And you could be.
He refuses to die by he refuses to leave his post by refusing to die. He's still on the foreign policy advisory board. Trump kicked him off, and then I think he came back under the Biden administration. So this man is still working well into his first century on this earth.
I remember when Luke Rudkowski went on Alex Jones because he was at some meeting or charity thing that Kissinger was a part of. He's like, Kissinger is an old man, and this was back in 2012. Kissinger's an old man with food all over himself, and they tried to do the whole guerrilla interview where Kissinger's like, get away from me, you twerp. I remember Kissinger saying that, get away from me, you twerp. And I'm like, oh, that was pretty funny. But no, what I was going to say about Biden is that they did try to do the whole revival thing where the media, and I remember that absolute shill that I don't want to Fed post, okay, but Dan Rather being the conscious of the boomers is so terrible and disgusting, where he tried to do I remember he tweeted something about this even, where he's trying to do the whole Biden is this heroic figure that made the optic sacrifice for every other president that doesn't have to deal with Afghanistan. But I'm thinking well, how come Obama didn't deal with Afghanistan? Because it was clear by his second term, at least, well into his first term, that Iraq and Afghanistan, Afghanistan in particular, didn't serve any real purpose. And so how come, Biden wasn't that heroic figure when he was at least somewhat, sentient during
Afghanistan
the Obama years?
Served a larger...
definitely. Yeah.
Between the two...
that Kissinger outlined, with the Chinese...
But I mean, especially with the Chinese in respect
and Brzezinski as well, the Chinese pipeline. That they're building now, so it didn't really matter.
Well, you still have the Chinese, that and the Chinese-Pakistan economic corridor, and now the Taliban government with Afghanistan is opening. With
Brzezinski talked about this in the 90s, in the Grand Chessboard.
And on top of that, right, the other issue, of course, is more recent news would be the Iranian Taliban disputes over government and whatnot. So I don't know.
They never liked each other. That's the thing. People don't realize this. They only
and again, this goes back to sort of the Obama calculus about it. This is okay, if I have some sort of nuclear agreement, say with the Iranians, and I can leverage a diplomatic relationship between the two, I can take advantage of this pullout in Iraq. Of course, Iran and Iraq, despite the Iran-Iraq war, clearly their relationship has improved significantly. Why not then focus my efforts on a troop surge in Afghanistan, where it really does matter, the Taliban, the terrorist organizations, and try and pull out of what would seem on paper relatively stable sort of liberal bureaucratic democracy, which of course then it didn't happen because we had a power vacuum, and then things really shit hit the fan with Syria, and then the situation got even more disruptive and disorderly. But that's the history of the foreign policy that will be litigated in 2024, because the Middle East is still an area of interest for the U.S. There's still a U.S. presence inside of Syria, despite Syria and Assad getting to renormalize relations with the Arab League.
Well,
and
Iran
Saudi
and
Arabia.
Assad, they're being normalized now by the Chinese takeover of the Middle East.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Like, I was going to say, like, the history goes back all the way to the early to mid 80s. It's very complicated because, okay, I'm spotty on the dates. Okay, I'm spotty on the nitty gritty. But Iran and Afghanistan have a complicated relationship. They didn't exactly get along with each other. And during the early 80s, they were much more favorable to each other because of the Soviet Union. But then what happened was, after the Revolutionary Guard was pretty much established, we all know that Ayatollah Khomeini, in his wisdom, got rid of the Communist Party in Iran and basically redacted about 6,000 communists. And so his relationship to the Soviet Union soured overnight because the Soviets basically wanted to use the instability the way that the West and Iraq under Saddam wanted to use that instability by attacking them. And then, of course, at the end stages in the mid 80s, at the end of the Iran-Iraq war, then you also have this campaign in Afghanistan against the Soviets that was funded by America. But at the same time, curiously, the Soviet Union and the West teamed up against Iran and the revolutionary government in the end stages of the Iran-Iraq war, especially blocking the ports and so forth and the oil. So it's very interesting. And I feel like is the relations between Afghanistan and Iran were very murky during the mid 80s and very fell apart because Iran was on the outs of the Soviet Union. And of course, the government that fell in Afghanistan, at the behest of the, Mujahideen, they also were on the outs with Iran. So even up until the 90s, I mean, of course, people, the neocons always had that fixation with Iran. But of course, because of Iraq and Afghanistan, they sort of kind of had to ignore Iran the way that they ignored Russia during that same time under Putler. And so the, geopolitical mess that we're in now is partially, I think, because of lack of awareness of the neocons in what they were doing during Iraq and Afghanistan. And it really did open up a void for all of these countries, including Russia. But then, of course, by the time we have 2014, now the neocons are firmly, under Obama, they become neoliberal. Now they're starting again to say, oh, wow, actually, one of our original goals was to crush Russia. And so we kind of had to neglect that. And, Syria is complicated because, of course, Assad and the 2 million Christians that, was protected by Assad, they were also protected by, by Russia and Wagner in particular. I mean, it's kind of murky. I know Prigozhin, he really loves to be like, we did that. We were the ones that helped, Aleppo and all that. But no, it's kind of true, kind of not, because there was a lot of Russian regulars from the GRU in there. So, of course, Prigozhin, he always loves to, pump his chest above Wagner. But the point being is that the neocons, and I think Kissinger, if you read his letters, and this by reading his letters, he really lambasts them for saying, you're kind of ignoring huge swaths of the world at selective times. You know what I mean? It's really fascinating how Bush kind of really shit the bed on a lot of issues from a purely cynical Machiavellian neoconservative perspective. They really had this selective tone deafness. You know what I mean? That really, I think, fucked over a lot of American interests in the long run. And of course, now, and Kissinger, I think he still has enough marbles to realize that, you know what I mean? That the neocons, they have this selective vision that really did them in during those years. And we're still litigating this now. And of course, Trumpism, I think, I remember reading a letter by Kissinger about Trump, how basically, Trump is the punishment for the neocons not doing their job, in other words, if I recall. I mean, of course, Kissinger goes back and forth on Trump. It's kind of hard, it's hard to parse the current age Kissinger when he's starting to lose his marbles a little bit. But still, I mean, that's, anyways, yeah. Do you more or less agree with my geopolitical picture here? Or,
I think you've oversimplified a few parts, to be honest.
Which parts? The Russia parts, of course. But
well, sure, but I mean, on top of that, right? Like there was a lot of heavy emphasis in a lot of literature that would stake itself out on the fact that there was a lot of pressure on sort of trying to contain Russia. I mean, there's a lot of debate. There's a debate, of course, over what sort of policy the U.S. would take, and I mean, this is where you get sort of the.
But they had to let up though in the 2000s a little bit to pursue Iraq and Afghanistan.
Well, things also had changed due to the economic situation inside of Russia in the early 2000s. Not to mention,
true.
You have a new regime that takes over at that time. Keep in mind. But this is still on top of the fact that the U.S. consequently throughout the early aughts under the Bush administration did move NATO further eastward. At the same time, the other aspect, of course, is the middle. I feel like I would need to seriously sit down and sort of litigate or do a post-mortem of Iraq and Afghanistan, because like there was a different moment there. And it was funny because on
who could we get on that would be good with that?
Someone who's actually served and someone who knows their marbles. There was the guy who wrote Data-Driven Defeat in the American Affairs Journal is someone that I do want us to interview one day, or I do at least.
Default wrote for American Affairs, so there you go. You could probably
maybe him and Paul Kingsnorth are like the two guests that I desperately want to have on the show. But like we went over this book a few months back about what the terrorism discourse looked like in 2004. And it was just bizarre to think that, this concept of transnational terrorist organizations, TTOs, were going to fundamentally make the world more chaotic and more disorderly in that respect. And that literature, it's just kind of disappeared. I mean, it does kind of illustrate, right, how much terrorism more or less may have been funded by various state and non-state actors. But it's bizarre to think that this was the discourse 20 years ago. And 20 years later, the only discourse about terrorism now, of course, is domestic. And this tends to happen every time that like we come back from a war with the U.S. This is that you saw this most famously with like Janet Reno, and the weaponization of the Justice Department against like militia movements and those that have anti-government sentiments. And of course, this all kicks off with spurious and speculative things like Randy Weaver, the Dravidians, and of course, the Oklahoma City bit. But
did you know about that book? I remember reading a thread on it about Timothy, that in the shadow of that written by that woman. That's like blood curdling, man. That book.
Maybe that should be maybe an after hours digital archipelago discussion.
Oh yeah, you should.
The truths and the unknown factors behind Oklahoma City.
You know what? Maybe in a month when we read it, we'll have the paywall. Yeah, we could do.
No, yeah, we should one of these days.
So it's going to do the manifesto one we didn't do, but
there's a lot of episodes that we need to put behind a paywall that we need to do. That included nothing, but this is all these things will be relitigated in 2024. The state of the American hegemon will be litigated, and people will say, well, foreign policy is not that big a deal. But I mean, considering
nowadays
the world economy, right, has been shaken by sanctions regimes. Printing, like we're also coming to roost, like the coup, Afghanistan, the coup especially more than anything else. I think will be relitigated because, I mean, this goes back to the DeSantis space. What was, and people were asking why is he running? And I thought Pat made a good point yesterday, and I reiterated it in today's Substack post called "Welcome to the Show," where I gave some preliminary thoughts on the announcement, which was that he has to take advantage of the fact that he has a very, very good political machine to where he narrowly wins election by both Trump's endorsement and Andrew Gillum having a total homosexual moment of passing out, overdosing, naked in a hotel room with another man.
I forgot about that.
You got to remember that. And then having a substantial Republican second-term re-election campaign and making an effective political machine inside of Florida. And so he's campaigning on that. He's campaigning on his positions on COVID and keeping things open. And that will be something that Trump will have to deal with, is that like, look, your response to COVID, you listened to Fauci, you encouraged this stuff. You had Deborah Birx on, you promoted Operation Warp Speed, and look at how well that's turned out, and all this excess death stuff.
It's the best medicine.
Those things will be used against him, and I think that, and that was the interesting part, is that DeSantis is trying to come off as this no-nonsense politician, the embodiment of Trumpism without Trump, despite the fact that you kind of need a political brand to win. And like this is the thing, is just that like we broke the internet, we did he sounds so monotone, he sounds so sad. And like the DeSantis War Room tweets out earlier today was just like the stuff from the Twitter Spaces, and it sounded like baby's first live stream. It was just really bad, and it was but he has to take advantage of what political capital he has now, and I think that this means he will be listening to the bad voices in his that are whispering into his ear, saying that you can be president, you can reshape the Republican Party in your own image, despite the fact that the people that are on board with his his plan for an administration are gravely concerning in this respect. And this is in part because you have, both. Here's the one that came out earlier, and this was from Rust Belt Vigil. One of DeSantis' policy directors is an Israeli-educated former spook employed at the Heritage Foundation. You can't find a more representative checklist of the neocons' most beloved symbols, like Dustin Carmack, research fellow for cybersecurity, intelligence, and emerging technologies at the Heritage Foundation. Graduated from Tel Aviv University. He was also the chief of staff of the director of national intelligence, May 2020 to January 2021, for 9 months, District of Columbia, United States. Interesting. So again, it's going to be about a personnel.
You can't get more glow in the dark than that.
Well, again, it's going to be about who. I don't like Trump and DeSantis. I really don't care, because really, if we're talking about like the administrative state, the bureaucracy, then you kind of need to know who's whispering in each other's ears. Like I know, at least for all of Trump's faults, announcing his 2024 bid meant Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump were all taking a step back. Thank God. But at the same time, right, like you see the Andrew Klosters and the Jeremy Carls of the world saying like, no, we want to do Schedule F. We want the Center for American Renewal to illustrate the need for judicial reforms. And it's going to be a fun time. And yeah, I know, Bourgeois Beatnik. It's very funny to see that play out. But I'm not so much concerned about
Ravioli Ron.
I know, Ravioli. That's a good one. I'm not so much concerned about those kind of connections, because you're going to find that with every presidential candidate that runs this race. They're all going to make a speech in front of IPAC. Let's not kid ourselves. But I'm the ones that are more genuinely concerned about, like, well, who's going to actually stop things like, the border being overrun? Who's going to actually... until someone says, I'm going to prosecute the Sackler family and we're going to get rid of Purdue Pharmaceuticals...
we're going to erect a gallows in the middle of the Potomac. No, I'm kidding. I mean, at the foot of the Potomac.
If they did that for pharmaceutical CEOs, they would have my vote and my allegiance.
In Minecraft, of course. Of course. Make a Minecraft.
Within legal, in the spirit of the law and in the word of the law, you should go for it. But I mean, oh boy, big news, everybody. This is what we're here to deal with. And that's the other thing too, is that this is the fun dynamic about. We're here, we're MAGA, get over it. I know, right? Like, this is the one funny thing about Trump that has like utterly has him in the bank for marketing and branding is it's like, it's MAGA, it's Make America Great Again. Like, whereas what is DeSantis is like, well, we're gonna have the Great American Comeback, and it's just like, ooh, like, why not say Make America Florida? Like if you're really banking on this, why not say, well, we're going to make America Florida, we're going to make America free, we're going to make America great. But again, like, that teeters too close to Trump's branding. And so he's got sort of the rhetorical edge, I think, on everybody going, it's his turn. Yeah, I know, right? Like, why? Here's how Bernie can still win, guys. It's the same kind of energy.
You know what? Like, speaking of Florida.
Yeah, go for it.
I think Ron should, this really pains me to say this, because like I know this is a hockey reference, by the way. I know what happened with the Maple Leafs, okay? And they kind of did it to themselves. By the way, go and read my article. It's still my pin tweet. No, actually, no, my stream with after the show, go and listen to Content Minded with Scott Mannion. Very interesting stream. Me and Scott have amazing chemistry together. And so go and listen to that after the show. But no, what I was going to say is that if probably a likelihood that the Florida Panthers are going to win the Stanley Cup, I can't believe it. The Outlaw Mud Show team. And so Ron DeSantis, like, he should be there when the Panthers win. I mean, because they just swept Carolina 4 games, right? You have to have 4 games to win a series, right? So, if they do win the cup, I mean, Meatball Ron should be there on the ice with them. That would be huge. He'd be like, "We're gonna sweep America the way that Florida Panthers swept the Stanley Cup Finals."
But he's not going to be that. He sounds like an awkwardly. He seems so gun shy, you know. Like, listen, I'm a no nonsense guy, but like, I really don't want to get into this. You know, let's get into the weeds somewhere else.
Yeah,
like,
I think Jeb Bush was there when the Tampa Bay won the cup. So,
well, sure, no, that's not what I mean. Like, he should embrace the sports thing wholeheartedly because that's still raw America stuff. But what I mean is like,
what's the football team in Florida?
There's no gravitas. I'm not pulled into anybody. Like, the only person, like, there are two other candidates on the campaign trail that I'm actually paying attention to, and it's Vivek Ramaswamy and RFK Jr. And you know it's bad when I'm paying attention to the Camelot circle jerk of nostalgia. Yes, I know.
That's like when they tried to run. Who'd they try to run before Jinder Mahal? No, sorry, Bobby Jindal. Jinder Mahal.
Bobby Jindal.
Jinder Mahal. Though he was the only Punjabi world heavyweight champion in the WWE.
He was a Rhodes Scholar.
Bobby didn't have any.
Bobby was also a successful governor.
He was, but especially
Bobby
Louisiana.
didn't do a bad job governing Louisiana.
It's just he had no charisma. Like, he looked like a middle manager guy.
Well, Bobby, he looks like a middle manager at IBM. Is what he looks like. Despite he's a smart guy.
That's like Jeb Bush didn't go very far because Jeb Bush looks like a middle management type of guy.
Jeb Bush is the kind of guy I would expect to run my like to be like the bank manager, like your local's Wells Fargo bank bit, and it's just like ooh, you know.
But Donald Trump gaming. Don't put that up. But that's
no, I won't.
Germanic Norse Gaelic Trump versus Swarthy Med Longhouse.
He listens to his wife, guys. That's what really matters here. He listens to his wife. Longhouse
pretty good looking, you know. I mean,
like people have went absolutely nuts. Like, there was this post that was shared by our good friend Christopher Sandbatch. And it was just this bizarre bit. I wonder if was it him that shared it? Yeah. This woman named Carrie says, Casey DeSantis definitely models her dresses on those Disney princesses. Glad being the wife of a prominent Florida politician gave her an almost one-of-a-kind opportunity to pursue that passion. Women are... God. And to me, it was just like, so it's a jealous woman tweeting about another woman. This isn't news.
Let me look this up if this is true. Let's see. What's her name? DeSantis' wife?
Casey DeSantis.
Casey.
Yeah, I know,
Casey
right?
DeSantis.
Restoring order in Florida.
Dresses.
But
let's see. Oh my God, it's true.
Yeah.
She does. I mean, she looks pretty good for, how old is she? She's got to be what?
50-something? Born in 1980, so 43.
Okay, that's not too old. She looks pretty good. But yeah, she definitely does have
the strategic fashioning of Casey DeSantis from the New York Times 23 hours ago.
Oh my God.
Aren't you glad that women's fashion is coming back into it in this respect? But Casey DeSantis channels as Jackie Kennedy, Melania Trump at the inauguration.
Yep. Oh, I saw this. Yeah. Is she Hispanic?
Casey DeSantis. Let's find out. Let's go to Wikipedia. While we're here, might as well early life check, right? First Lady of Florida. She is the second child of Robert Black, an optometrist and former United States Air Force officer, and Jeanne, a Sicilian immigrant.
Okay.
She graduated, has a Bachelor of Science in Economics and a minor in French. And she doesn't look so bad for surviving, battling and beating cancer. That's pretty good.
Yeah, breast cancer, or yeah.
I don't know what cancer that she had, but cancer is always a bitch. Trump would admit he was wrong on COVID and have RFK Jr. VP. I don't.
Well, my serious take on the Twitter space would be that. Wait, you go ahead, Prude.
All I was going to say is that this is a terrible comment to make, and I will be serious after this comment. Saran is still alive. All it would take is one Soros-funded DA to let him out on good behavior. History has his eyes on you.
No. Oh, that's brutal. Who's gonna finish the
job? But yeah, okay. I
think he shared. He was a few cell blocks away from Ted, our good uncle Ted K.
We just covered Ted K on Pete Quinones the other week. We talked about why
Well, they keep all those political prisoners in Colorado.
Gotta keep them in the Supermax in Colorado.
Yeah, man, that place is brutal.
Your serious take on the space.
You know, there's a lot of like Colorado connections to the New World Order, like the airport, the Supermax. They housed all the pertinent like political prisoners of the American state. Crazy. But anyways, no, I think that let me read to you some takes by our good friend, content enjoyer Chud Close My Eyes. And maybe I shouldn't, because I know, you know, in terms of optics, but whatever, who cares? So he says, where is it? Is this boring? The quote from Ron DeSantis: "They're bringing woke. They're bringing meat masks. They're racists." What an awful way to set the tone for a presidential run. No live crowd, no energy, no vision outline, no inspiring rhetoric, just geeky public babble in podcast format. Feels like something you would have thrown together out of necessity during the lockdowns. That is a great take. I feel that when it comes, okay, the technical issues, I know it shouldn't be an issue, because like at the peak, there was about almost 800,000 people listening to this thing. So, but I know like, it's funny how like technical issues on a website, yeah, exactly, ADX Florence, that's what it's called, Nudge Unit. I know technical issues shouldn't be an issue, but then it becomes a political issue.
Yeah.
But I think that another good friend of ours, My Fitness Feelings, he had a great take where he says like the most charitable outlook would be that it was a snooze fest and it was low energy, and Ron DeSantis should have been coming with at least a sort of podcast cadence of like, you know, when you're in a Twitter space and someone's cutting it up, like it just kind of was like he's a typical politician. It reminded me of Jeb Bush, where Jeb Bush would go up there with his crumpled piece of paper and he'd be like, "This is my outline." And like, you know, and of course, like he's got like the best handlers that his family paid for to like guide him through it. Right.
Yeah.
But I feel like those people, they don't really translate into a post-Trump political order for the GOP, because like, if anything, 2024 will be an emporium on what the GOP's, the directionally what they're going to go with, what they're going to be like after Trump. And I think that, like we were talking about before the show, is that, to be completely fair, the criticisms are apt in terms of like Trump does have certain faults that they can exploit. And I feel like it's okay. If there was no Trump running and DeSantis wins, then I don't think he would win the presidency, right? Just, you know, he's too low energy. But if by some crazy world, like some alternative timeline where a switch goes off in DeSantis's brain and he manages to beat Trump in the primaries by counter mogging him, then I think DeSantis would have a good run at the presidency, right? I think if he manages to, if it was a 1-to-1 fight with Biden and he loses, then okay, fine. But if he manages to beat Trump in the primaries, I think DeSantis would have an actual shot at the presidency as a Republican candidate, right? But the one thing I can't help but feeling, I think even Patrick Casey alluded to this, is that I can't help but feeling that this is like a slapdash put together thing of like establishment people memed DeSantis into running, and now he's running. And now that Twitter space is proven by the tone of it. And halfway through I cut out because it was boring, that he's like doing this because he's being guided by the hand. And I think that DeSantis, he could have been an inspiration for governors across America, Republican governors, to sort of create a block of a counter sanctuary state narrative, like a counter sanctuary complex where based world could be lived out in selective states that are willing to defy the federal government in certain pertinent issues. I think that that's where DeSantis could have been. But I can't help but feeling that there is just, and here's the thing, DeSantis might be a great guy, and DeSantis was a good governor of Florida, but something about it just seems inauthentic fundamentally. And this is why last night's timeline from the left to the far right has been an absolute highway of death I didn't see the only thing. Again, I don't want to single him out. The only pro DeSantis take I saw were two people, Wyatt and Pedro Gonzalez. Okay, and that was it. Even Richards, even the well-coiffed hairdo gentleman said DeSantis was low energy. And he like hates Trump with a passion now. Like that really
it's bad if Richard Spencer, who hates Trump and Republicans and conservative whites, is
and
telling
Hanania.
You that...
Yeah.
Well, Hanania is pro Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yeah.
So like that
one manager type to another. So
yeah, right. Martin is right. Richard Hanania is the perfect example of Cudahy's ordeal of civility.
No, exactly. Yeah. But the fact that like it was a highway of death for DeSantis last night on the TL, like I know, like I don't want to bash him too hard. I know like it's fun, the funny memes like Meatball Ron DeSanctimonious, Prosciutto Ron. Like okay, it's funny, right? But I feel like Ron is being sacrificed by the professional Republican Party to run when he shouldn't run. And there is enough of a contingent of boomers that do kind of like him, that still like listen to Sean Hannity, that I feel like all of this is inauthentic. And it's really a tragedy because I kind of do like DeSantis. I in terms of, his prestige in Florida. I think he is a good governor. But it's like, it to me, it just doesn't make any sense. They're doing this because they figure he's the most popular and effective governor that is a Republican. Who can beat Trump? Oh, Ron DeSantis. But it's not going to work because even people that would support him, I think if Trump failed in 24 and then Ron DeSantis is young enough where he can run in 27 or 28? 28. If he ran 28 and if he ignored all those Republican hacks, pissing in his ear, I think that Ron DeSantis would have a good shot. Right.
Well, I'm gonna just address chat for two things.
Yeah, go ahead. So but you
have a point, and I'll get to it there. I'm gonna go in three orders: 2 points from chat, and then what you had said. Doesn't DeSantis losing the primary still put him in place for the VP pick? No, because Trump moved to Florida, making him a Florida resident. Because of how the electoral votes are counted, both the candidate for president and vice president cannot both be from the same state. This is why Dick Cheney famously moved to be a resident of Wyoming in the 2000 election. Secondly, politics is fake. Watching people break it down, like people throwing up. I'm sorry, you're still governed by politics. You can say politics are
kind of fake,
and
but
there's a lot of theatrics to it. But I hate to break it to you, the minutia of what happens in Washington and the IMF,
who's going to win a Monday Night Raw,
and all these things that happen in Washington and the power plays that happen in there, you're still governed by them. Like, I get it. Elections are fake and gay. People don't like them.
It's a very fake and gay show that happens to have power over you.
That happens to rule over your ass.
Yeah.
And people are going to talk about it. And I really am going to tell you right now, most people are probably going to be tired of it. And I'm not going to cover the election very often either. There are a million other people that love their 270 to win maps that will do it. But whether you like it or not, you are still governed by politics. You are still governed by the decrepit, degenerate, dysgenic old people that run the halls of Washington, the bureaucracy in the White House. You're still governed by these fuckers. And you're going to be governed by the people that aren't the people that stand in front of camera, but the people whispering in their ears and the people running things behind the scenes, which is why you should pay attention to people like Jared Kushner or pay attention to the people like Dustin Carmack that I mentioned earlier on stream. Politics, you may hate it, you may find it fake and gay, but that fake and gay ass is going to find you regardless of whether you like it or not. And so at the end of the day, people are still going to have political discussions. People are still going to break it down because unfortunately, this is the world that we live in. And until either complete collapse of the state, like Rome, when the Vandals finally came in and conquered the place, and that's it, or until Constantine the 11th is finally killed and it's over for the Byzantines, we're stuck this way. And people are going to talk about it. And for whether we like it or not, we're here to talk about it as well because we're still ruled by it. And I'm still ruled by it, and it fucking sucks. And so now to get to your last point, I think it would be nice if DeSantis would wait. Because if he's shown us one thing and one thing only, whenever he does something to raise his national profile and does something good for the state of Florida, every other Republican governor that still has a little bit of testosterone in them still does something and follows suit. The only time I've ever seen Greg Abbott get interested in doing anything to roll his limp ass out of his chair and say, I'm going to do this, is when Ron DeSantis does something or he feels like his party is in the risk of losing power. And so, it would be nice if he waited. But at the end of the day, 28 doesn't really matter because they want to put forward that new popular vote, electoral vote compact that all these blue states are doing. So whoever wins the popular vote wins the electoral vote, which defeats the purpose of the electoral college anyway. So, well, we're at a point that the window is closing. If not, it has already closed. And if that's the case, you can ignore everything I just said in the last 10 minutes, and you should start prepping with your precious metals, your cans of food and perishable items, and have reliable networks or be an expat. Because things will either inevitably get worse, or you can participate in a system that tells you how on earth can I manage to survive on a local level. And I will always tell you that politics is not about the grand meta narratives of Washington, D.C. and Capitol Hill. It really depends on who do you know.
Yeah, this isn't Politico here, obviously.
Yeah, we're not Politico. I'm not going to ever tell you to go to Washington and make a big fuss about it. I will tell you to go to your city hall meeting. I will tell you to be really good friends with the guys that know how to clean pipes, electricians, plumbers, automotive engineers and technicians, the people that are actually going to keep your society functioning when shit hits the fan. Those are the people you should be friendly with. But
but to push back, to push back a little bit on what in your rant there, just for the sake of the show, just for the sake of balance, I guess, because I do see some people in the chat, vote cuck rant. No, I think that
it's not even. I don't even give a shit if you vote or not. I'm just simply telling you that you're fucking ruled by it, whether or not you vote.
No. Okay, I think yes, that's 100% true, Prude. I think that politics is kayfabe. Politics is professional wrestling, but it does still have bearing on your life, whether you do like it or not. But I think that people are disenfranchised by the sort of party politics that America at the highest and lowest levels are obsessed with. Like the sort of like thinking about politics like it is professional wrestling. Like it's like, who's going to win tonight? It's like, I feel like that is what people are criticizing. I feel that, when people say that politics is not like, politics doesn't matter, politics is not the solution, I feel like people are opining for something much more deeper and integral. And people do choose to focus on things like, culture and arts and so forth. But I do think that, to your point, though, politics still does matter in the sense of we are in this system and it does govern our lives and it does have immense ramifications for, future generations. So it's like, it's a weird and awkward thing to say that, on the one end, the spectacle of it does not matter. But the cold, hard reality of the current political reigning order does still have a bearing on your life, whether we like it or not. So I am sympathetic, though, to people in the chat that say that, people elsewhere that say that, politics doesn't matter. Or it's not that it doesn't matter. It's that the ephemera of politics and the obsession with it doesn't matter.
I mean,
but the cold hard reality of it,
you should not be following it like a woman in like a 1700s
like
battlefield.
The View.
You should not be following it like a ne'er-do-well whore follows a traveling band of soldiers in the 1600s. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying you should do. Right. If there's any politics that you should give a shit about, it's local, and that's about it.
Well, Donald Trump gaming brings a good point. Like Canada, if anything, is more so like professional wrestling because there's no difference between like the conservatives and Justo. I mean, apart from like certain optics, but in America, I do feel that there is a space of difference in that there still is enough dissonance within the Republican Party itself because of Trump and because of other factors that you can have political difference on a deeper level. You know what I mean? Like, but in Canada, there's much easier argument to be made that like, actually it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, Palavra will have like a smidgen less, immigrants that he'll let in as opposed to Trudeau.
Oh, I mean, it's the same thing with like the GOP doing like, well, I'm for legal immigration, not an immigration moratorium. Right. But like, it's the same. But my logic, again, this goes back to the logic for like 2020 Trump is like, do I want to accelerate or do I want to buy my ass 4 more years of vital time to prepare for the shitstorm?
Right.
And I will always advocate for more time. Because one, I'm not an accelerationist, but two, it's just like there are some people that are like still new to the space relatively who don't know how bad things are. And I think it's important that we still buy as many of our people time. as that sort of respect. But I mean, like, yeah, I get it. Some people will say like, oh, well, it's like that Michael Tracy tweet, like, what a great dank meme from twitter.com. You know what'll end all this wokeness? That's right, Israel.
That
like,
was such a great, what a
that was a wonderful
moment,
tweet. What a wonderful
Tracy.
tweet. Thank you, Michael Tracy, for your stunning political input, because that was such a banger tweet. I shared that. I bet
you
Telegram.
Cenk was going like, "Oh my god, I used to employ this guy. I can't believe it." Like it's
still. I mean, it was a great take. I mean, it's the country that pays for most things out of everything, and I think Radlib and I are going to cover the 2008 book by Mearsheimer and Walt, The Israel Lobby, pretty soon. So stay tuned for that, because we will have a nice civil discussion that will be YouTube friendly for it. But
no, but I think like one thing I wanted to bring up was that I feel like, okay, the mood of 2024, and it could be wrong because again, we're still in 2023 and who knows what's going to happen. But I feel like the mood will be, again, like to go to a professional wrestling storyline, it will kind of be like the Republicans will have the spotlight, because the Democrats are pretty open about the fact that they are the party. They're the inner party. They're the governing party. They're, to quote Pierre Trudeau Sr., the Liberals are the natural governing party in Canada, which is kind of true if you look at the history of Canada. But
well,
it's pretty obvious. But I think that now the Democrats, now that they're more mask off with like, we're the real party, we're the real authority, the Republicans are just the foils, they're kind of like the unruly, like hick chud outsiders. I feel like the Republicans.
Well, there's also a huge immigrant factor to it.
Well. They're the real soul of America, because America is an immigrant nation, right? So it's like,
well, because I mean, it's the argument that you could make is like, well, the Democrats are the ruling party of America because historically they've always expanded the franchise. B, they're still the ones that can tell black people what to do in this country. Three, it's still New England-esque waspy coastal elites that are still running things.
Jansen, I know.
Yeah. It's the funny thing is that there's some semblance of truth to this, and it was very funny that even self-proclaimed Democrat supporter and all that sort of jazz, even like Yarvin was just like, yeah, a lot of aspects of the modern GOP are just so xenophilic that it's sort of the immigrants' place to be an entryist, and you're kind of seeing this with like the NatCon techno optimist wing of like this quote unquote new right that's coming in, this Teal money and all that. They got distasteful over culture war issues. I noticed that Teal had said that about the 2024 election, that he wasn't going to be as involved, although I think this is what happens when they kill one little red boy and dark elves get scared. I think it's also an illustration of the fact that they're still new to the game. There's this essence of like immigrant nouveau riche that like has to work with this like decaying Republican Party apparatus. They want to be countercultural and conservative because it's hip to be transgressive and edgy and Catholic, Dime Square and all that jazz. And so
no, but then there's the chud element of it.
And then there's the chud element to it, where it's just like the rural Midwestern working whites that are dying by the hundreds of thousands due to opioids, that listens to Kid Rock, that doesn't that says it's heritage, not hate, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's just this weird amalgamation of all these. The flyover, disaffected, forgotten part of the country is also now having to deal with this like immigrant new money techno optimism Palladium mag style shit, and it's all ugly, it's all awful. I definitely understand that people don't want to participate in that, and I don't either. I participate in local politics, but you telling me that I want to go to like the RNC convention like in next June in 2024? Fuck no, I wouldn't want to be there.
What
Too much cocaine and red boys, no thank you.
What if NatCon gave you a speaking gig?
If NatCon gave me a speaking gig, that would probably mean that I had sold out some time ago, and that's probably not a good thing for me.
Oh, you think our friend Alex Kashuta sold out?
No, I'm not. But I look at the fact that NatCon has a mix of people like Alex Kashuta and JD Vance, and then you've got these god awful members of parliament that are saying it's a good thing that Britain is more diverse, and that we should love our country enough to tweet against and dissent with our own real names. So I have very mixed feelings about it, not to mention that there's like a large amount of government funding that actually went into these sort of like NatCon talks in Britain. At the same time, like why is like Turning Point USA or CPAC hosting events in Mexico and Hungary. It's an illustration.
Well, they know
of how,
the way their wind's blowing, eh?
Well, yeah, they demographically they sure do. So
no, it's funny though, because in my paper I'm going to send you that's
Eastern Europeans and Mexicans. Let's go, kids.
No, but that's what I mean. That's like in my book, which we're going to put in the end of Neoliberal Kitsch, is that I quoted the book, the Democracy, the God That Failed, where he talks about Hungary, and it's like I basically conclude that you have to find. Again, I'm giving it out for free, but like basically you'll have to read the book for the buildup of it. But basically, I can conclude that Western Faustian man has to find the roots of his own culture and his own history. You can't just like look to Eastern Europe or look to like other parts of the world, like especially people like that look to like China. Like it's ridiculous, right? Like not ridiculous, but like for example, I use this one. Remember I said that I used the one example of that Elijah Schaffer tweet.
Yeah,
and not to cast too much shade in Elijah Schaffer, but like where he's like, look at this Chinese city, and it's like it's just like Blade Runner, bros. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, pretty lights
and poorly made steel. Got it.
I love my bug hive. I love my dystopian bug hive.
I love my urban longhouse.
Yeah, but the point being is that like my general point is that the Republicans seriously, I feel in 24 are going to have to do that soul searching, and it is a mess between like nouveau riche tech bros. A lot of them come from outside of America. Very funny that way. And the chuds. And I feel like it's kind of like it's very interesting that way, because in some ways the Democrats don't have that identity crisis because they know the radicalism that they're fostering, and that's the way of the future. And so it's the way of the present, actually, because of course that is basically liberal ideology now. That's radical. That's like radical liberal ideology is an eternal present. Right. But I do feel like 24 will be this giant. I know that's like such a stupid term that politicians, especially Republican politicians, trot out of like, the soul of the nation. But it's like, no, the Republican Party is going to have to reconcile that. You're going to have to think about a future without Trump. But what has Trumpism laid the groundwork for that is very interesting? And it's like, to be brutally honest, I think that the chuds have problems, and I don't necessarily trust this tech sector NatCon thing going on.
I don't.
So
this is the fundamental. Like, this is why I had such a knee-jerk reaction to the Dark Elves commentary from Yarvin, who really is the embodiment.
Oh, sorry. One last point. Did you see the Beth Ugar Sargon tweet about Mahekan working class?
No, I didn't.
Well, okay. It's funny because our good friend Evan Platinum quoted her where she's like, and I don't have nothing against her. I think she does some good work, but she had this quote, like basically reiterating the quote unquote post left of like, well, the Republicans, they, didn't, they should focus on, working class economic issues and the culture war stuff. Again, this is reiterating the like Thiel Capital NatCon like tech sector version of the Republican Party, the Yarvinite version, where it's like you have to focus on economics and so forth. It's like a strange reversion to libertarianism. But Evan Platinum quote tweeted her saying that actually, if you even look to the 60s and 50s, even before Reagan, the right wing in America always focused on culture war issues. So saying that like there was this aberration called the culture war that like uniquely infected the Republicans since Ronnie Reagan, and that we should ditch that for this older version of the Republican Party. Like, no, that's crazy. The like right wingers in America always had the culture war, and this is your history in North America. The right wing always focused on culture, and that you should actually, when you like pull this like Widenicon bullshit about like, oh, this is a distraction. It's like, no, this is real for a lot of people. This is what gets votes even, right? How do you think Blumpkin won in Virginia? Sorry, Lumpkin. Youngkins. He focused on critical race theory. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just this whole line about like, oh, you got to focus on economic issues. You have to get rid of the culture war stuff. It's like, I'm sorry, but when it comes to the chuds, people that actually vote that vote red, The culture war issues are what's going to get you votes in America, right? Pat Buchanan was way ahead of the curve on this one. So, sorry, Prude, I interrupted you, but I felt like that's an important point.
That was perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I think that that's a good point, because there's a huge valley of disconnect between someone who listens to this and then someone who is going to boomer post about how awful Biden is on Facebook.
Yeah.
Or even someone that doesn't pay attention to politics, like someone that doesn't, have a YouTube channel or a Twitter account. Like there's a finely tuned population that's in the know versus those that aren't. But I mean, this goes back to the tech bro thing that we were talking about. Like, again, that's the dark elves and hobbits thing, which to me, on one hand, this does sound a lot like the part in the Communist Manifesto where he says, at the time of the proletariat revolution, there will be elites that are supporting us and they will convert to our side in order to usher in this, of course, revolution. But at the same, there's a little bit of Marxist analysis in it. But at the same time, he's also advocating, look, there is a nouveau riche, organized minority of people that want to run things, and we can just rule over you marginally better than them. Despite the fact, as Curtis has written in that Coriolanus essay a couple years ago, I don't have anything in relation to you Fly-Over-Bumpkins, and I don't ever expect to, my kids won't, I won't. And I was just like, I get that, like, son of a foreign service agent, probably has connections to intelligence communities, and just not my people. I get that, understood. But at the same time, it's just like, can you, are you? There's a disconnect there as well, and you're seeing that play out here. And so, and again, like, America is a country of way too many people. It's full, no more, get out. But secondly, it's so large in population density and geographically diverse that America doesn't know itself in some respects. And I think that we will see an eventual regression in return to sort of more regionalized identities. And they never really went away. It's still far more pronounced in the South than anywhere else. But I think you'll see this in these mega regions of Los Angeles and Austin and New York and other cities as well, Chicago. I mean, these will turn into these sort of big region hubs, and that will play a role into it. But again, you don't have to care. And I mean, I will not be doing, weekly commentary shit like on this. I have made it a promise, and I make it a big deal to not do rank punditry on this YouTube channel.
Unless it becomes
unless it's on here. Unless it's here, right? Like, then we can talk about it, which is why I like doing the news stuff on this show. But like, I'd like to think that my essays have held up more than a year after they've been written. I mean, I'll do some brief hot takes on Substack where I'll write maybe 1,500 words and give some thoughts like I did today on the DeSantis announcement, like we're discussing here. But the thing at the end of the day too is that, like, the party apparatus is so desperate not to be remade in the cult of personality of one man that, like, Trump will say mail-in ballots bad, here's all the reasons why, Time Magazine election fortification. Whereas Ronna McDaniel is talking in, like, Deseret News in Utah, because of course she's Mormon. That actually we're doing all this outreach and we're doing all this get out to vote efforts. And so, for a lot of us who are not very pro-democracy, I am not a democracy appreciator. I'm not a democracy fan. You can put that on the record. But, then there are some that are. And so, for the time being, this is the game, as fake and gay as it is, that is out there. You don't have to play it. But that fake and gay game, whoever wins that fake and gay game still rules over you. And there's money to be made in it, as well as the fact that there is connections that you can make in the meantime to help you survive and weather the storm that will inevitably come. Because what just came out today was the Biden administration saying that he's going to work with multiple coordination of law enforcement agencies, media, academics, to combat extremism and anti-Semitism. And this is very convenient right after the DeSantis interview, very convenient in the midst of the 2024 race, that America will probably see similar security apparatus stuff happen as it has before. I mean, like, in the past, you would just get kicked out of National Review and you'd have to do a couple of newsletters and hope that people followed you. Nowadays, it's the internet. No one's really canceled and you can come back. I mean, just look at John Derbyshire, for goodness sakes. Gets kicked out of the National Review, but you can still listen to Radio Derb and hear all his, distant right, pro-white takes. And so, I think we have not gotten to the point where podcaster gets arrested for 2.5 years, like in the UK. That will eventually come for America. That will happen if it hasn't already happened.
Yeah.
And we still have the J6 shit. So again, like, real people's lives have already been fucked over. And I think, again, this is why you should follow things within the letter of the law and not get in trouble, and to be very careful when people advocate for, violent action this summer. I'm just simply saying be safe, trust your gut on that stuff. But I think that, yeah, you're going to see this regime, this administration clamp down really hard, because I don't think that they can repeat the 2020 Summer of Love riots. I know it's the 3rd anniversary since George Floyd's overdose. And it's very nice of Nightmare Vision to let us know that George Floyd, his little plush, is transitioned. I welcome Georgina Floyd and recognize her as such, but it does it does illustrate. It was so funny. I love the Floydy. The Floydies thing is so fucking funny. I don't care what anyone says. Nightmare Vision is an artist in his own craft, and it's funny. But
I remember when the Irony Leftists like had such a huge fit.
It was so good. Yeah. It was so good. And like they had the Derek Chauvin plush holding the 2 little Floyd plushies, and he's like, "Yeah," and
that was so brutal.
And it's like, "Yeah," and it's like there's appointed to the Supreme Court. Yeah, and I heard he's Jewish. Oh, we're saved. It's just like he is. I pray to God that man never gets doxxed. He's so good at what he does. But it does illustrate that, like, the screw will get tighter, and they're not going to risk any sort of replays of anything. And the real fake and gay containment part, and this is why, like, I don't the containment part that get your rocks off back into the politics game is like the new Twitter, and I spell like NU, like new mail from the Red Pill community. New Twitter under Elon, this like soylenial Reddit tier Elon, my heckin' freedom of speech, my marketplace of ideas, Elon Musk, having this guy on Twitter, attempting to get everyone to come back in to this containment zone of the Twitter space. But it's also a containment zone, but it's also the place where dialogue happens. It's the last place for discourse, because today's tweets become tomorrow's news chyrons, and then the next articles in the Wall Street Journal and the American Affairs Journal, and so on and so forth. And so it's just this awful place that is a great place for containment, a great place for posting, a great place for discourse. But he really wants you to come back in, buy into the Overton window, buy into the illusion with my everything app, the Twitter X, and ensure that you too can listen on Twitter and only on Twitter, Tucker Carlson tonight, and be sure to listen to the latest Twitter space with the next candidate. I'm sure, Richard Hanania will have Vivek Ramaswamy on a Twitter space now. And it's just, again, that's the real containment for it. The siren's call is the guy strapped to his, he's got to tie himself to the mast of the ship as he listens to the siren's call of get involved in politics again. Listen to Mr. Ron Meatball DeSantis talk to Elon Musk. I mean, that War Room video that they put out of Elon Musk laughing at the meme review thing alongside DeSantis standing in front of like a podium and talking about the need for the great American comeback. Like, no one buys into this. The only people that desperately want to buy into this are the people that want you to go back to like a 2014 era of Republican style politics. We talk about zombie Reaganism.
Pre-Trump,
we want to talk about zombie Reaganism. Like, I'm sorry, these people want zombie George Will and George W. Bush era conservatism. My heckin' compassionate, crunchy conservatism is what these people want back. And I'm not having it. I'm not buying it. I'm not involved.
I think, I'm mixed up because I feel like what Elon is attempting to do, I mean, of course, the Twitter site would have to change a little bit. For example, if he wanted like a walled garden, like state of Twitter where it's a maximum content machine that it can harmonize all aspects of a content creator's output, from live stream to video to writing, to tweets. Like, I feel like he would have to have an organized video section if he wants to like rival YouTube, like where you could like clearly and distinctly look up people's tweets, videos, and they'd have to be longer and so forth. I feel like that's a good idea in theory, but there is, like what you were saying, an angle that I didn't think about, that Elon is tactically trying to cool things down on a discursive level to say that maybe if we do go back to like 2014, 2013 Republican politics, and we sort of like put
Remember,
a tap.
he said, or like he said, Ron DeSantis is sensibly centrist, or sensible and centrist.
Yeah, exactly. So in a way, you could sort of like, tone things down rhetorically on certain right-wing issues, but then others you could sort of like have an open floodgate with that is like sort of a release valve. Like I noticed like going after the impossible people, that's sort of becoming like a relief valve in terms of like you can do that, but if someone is like terrible optics in terms of like calling out other issues, then they're off Twitter. Which I mean, theoretically, I mean, you'd think that some certain amount of quality control would help, right? But actually, it just creates a release valve. The way that certain issues within the GOP would get amplified to create a release valve for the chuds over other ones. So I feel like Elon is doing this very like he's doing a dangerous play because at the end of the day, like, Twitter was integral to Trump and Trumpism. And it's like, I feel like there's this animosity growing between Trump and Elon. And it's like, there's something there. I feel there's a game that Elon is playing. And for whatever good he's done, he has done objective good, right? And I think that turning Twitter into a multimedia empire is probably a smart move to rival the power of YouTube and Twitch and other platforms. But at the same time, if it's going to be just like the usual pap, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it. I feel like Elon is certainly doing a power play here. And I feel like throwing his weight behind DeSantis is indicative of that. And I don't know. I feel like same with Peter Thiel, right? Like there's something there. There's something where they're like, we think that Trump is kind of like dangerous to the, established power. And it's like he's too much of a volatile commodity. And it's like they're thinking like bugman business people. That's what they're doing. They're thinking like heads of Silicon Valley corporations, where they're trying to like put their weight behind what's kind of seemingly edgy, but still a best bet. You know what I mean? In terms of like existing power structures. So I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I still think that Elon Twitter has some merits and benefits, but then it's like the whole DeSantis Twitter space did put a bad taste in my mouth. I don't know, like, where do you stand on this issue, Prude, about Elon creating a multimedia empire? I mean, a walled garden, if you will.
I think, I mean, there's some instance where I think that these characters are getting involved in politics because they're like, listen, I want to do shit that I can only do in this country, like
Yeah.
multimedia empires, building rockets, sending them off into space, inventing new technologies. Like, if you have some entrepreneurial sense in you, and Elon clearly does, like, eventually you're going to have to get involved in politics because your own interests are going to rub against the interests of the state, number one. And then number two, like, if things are getting so dysfunctional that like we're debating whether or not we should mutilate children and castrate them when they're born or to kill them in the womb, it's like, oh, I can't function in this environment if you guys are debating this. And I
saw this take today that almost had like 100,000 likes where it was like,
you mind if I finish here?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Into that?
Yeah.
And so like I actually agree with that instance where you're coming from, Gio. And but there's also the fact that like these guys have to deal with the government all the time, oversight, regulation, and whatnot. So like,
yeah, true.
If I want to build, I need to vie for an alternative thing. And like Haywood, who is the most doomer optimist I've ever seen, he had a point about this with the new founding folks. He was just like, eventually you're going to have to start doing stuff on your own end, so you're not as reliant on the state. And these guys, and the thing about like Silicon Valley and other large corporations is that they have so much power that they kind of do rival the government in some instances. And we kind of see this with like information technology, right? Like that's what made the trust and safety team with Twitter an extension of government. And now you don't have that. So he's kind of like trying to set up his own thing and do it his own way while still playing kindly to the, free speech is paramount to all type deal. But so I'm in a large agreement with that, with your position there, Gio, but go on.
Oh no, I had like just you were saying about the in the womb thing. I saw this like tweet by some terrible radfem ghoul where it was like not even a radfem, it was like if there was like an artificial womb, that then like Republicans, conservatives want to like, what with the baby. And it was like such a like ridiculous take that like this is the world that we're living in right now. We're literally living in like man-made horrors beyond our dreams that we're seeing in front of our eyes. And it's like, I feel like having the ability to like actually call it out now for the first time in a long time is monumental, obviously. But then we have to realize that we're dealing with like actual, like you were saying, people that have immense political influence and who are a part of the system more than anything. Right. So, I mean, the idea of a dissident elite is interesting and sexy and so forth. But the reality on the ground is that, it's very interesting that we can call out these things. But, sorry, I just had to mention that because I saw that. I don't know if you saw it going viral, that one particular take, but it's just like, this is like the absolute demonic forces we're dealing with right now. And,
actually, I didn't see that tweet at all.
Well, it was because of like that impossible woman that.
Oh, the breastfeeding thing?
Yeah, it was in
Oh,
response to
yeah, I
that.
did see that one.
That
Oh.
we actually achieve. Here's the where is I screen capped it because I wanted to tweet about it, but then of course I have to go back behind the lock.
Yeah.
Where is it? Here we go. ISTG transphobes just know zero about the human biology. So basically saying that this is Jenny Tightpants, of course, one of the biggest accounts of these people. My prediction is when the first trans woman gets a womb transplant and gets pregnant, the anti-trans, anti-abortion people will respond by demanding it be you know what. So
yeah,
there you go. Of course, this person is one of the biggest, on Twitter, right? So it's just it's like these people have such a like disgusting irreverence for life and decency and godliness that I just can't help but like wonder, like in disgust, that it's like, wow. Someone like the meme, like it's none of these words are in the Bible, right?
yeah.
Meme par excellence. None of these words are in the Bible. You know what I mean?
It's like that old Simon and Garfunkel song, trying to keep the customer satisfied.
Yeah. Oh God. No, but my point being is that I feel like there is a case to be made that like certain culture war issues are so ridiculous that it's like literally, why are people talking about this? But at the same time, it does matter because this is like, I noticed that the radical left, like from a very long time, at least like before the Bush years, has always had this thing about that one medical procedure and like having demonstrations where it's sort of like trying to mortify their stereotypical picture of a church, evangelical church lady. And it's always like this fake edginess that they have, that the mainstream left has, that they've had forever, where it's like they'll tweet stuff like this, or they'll have like that one. Again, always bring up this example, that one demonstration in Argentina back in like 2013, where they were protesting that one Supreme Court law decision around that medical procedure, where they had a demonstration where I believe it was Femen that gave that certain medical procedure to Mother Mary and Christ. So it's like they always have this like weird obsession around this like disgust impulse of the pro-life people and church ladies and so forth. And it's just like it's so ubiquitous that it's banal. But the only grand point I have about this is that this form of transgression has been around forever. That it's like the fact that nowadays I notice that there is a resensitization, the fact that there is a freeing up of discourse to say that no, actually, this is evil, this is demonic, and this is like fake edginess, which is really the worst crime. Not the worst crime, but like it's
then you had that
the fact that it's boring and it's fake. It's not really transgressive. That is the ultimate crime of the contemporary left. Sorry, go ahead, Prue.
No, you're right. Like I don't want to like pull off Hannah Arendt here, but yeah, it is the banality of evil. It's the banality of transgression. It's the mundane madness, as I wrote for the Old Glory Club about this marketing and advertising, that god awful Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence thing with the Dodgers in LA, and all of a sudden you get those Jesuit rags saying I've got complicated feelings about it, and it's just awful stuff.
Yeah.
And so, like, yeah, people actually have to. And again, this is why, like, again, you don't have to participate, but the stuff still plays a role in your life. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's the same thing with CRT. It's the same thing with transing the kids. It's the same thing with sacrilegious desacralization of our society with these god awful pederasts and predators and dysgenics praying around in nun costumes and
Oh yeah, the
doing pole
Dodgers.
dancing
Yeah.
around a crucifix. It's awful. I hate evil. I hate evil. I hate the Antichrist. Simple and simple and simple. Transgression is protected by gatekeeping and discipline, and unfortunately, the people that are inside of the gates are evil and awful. And so that's the case.
I thought I was talking to the real default friend in the chat this whole time.
The real default friend would be behind an alt lurking.
Yeah.
Let's not kid ourselves here.
Whoa. No, but I feel like
that and the other stuff too with Target too. Like again, it's all.
Yeah, oh god, Target took a big hit though. See, they're panicking, the leftist accounts. They're panicking because here's this one tweet by this one professional activist that I screen capped by no, actually, wasn't Michael Hayden a CIA person?
Yes, he was.
Target claims they're removing Pride merchandise from their stores to protect security of their employees. The message that anti-LGBT CIA bigots and fascists will receive from this is making violent threats work. They get worse. Okay, listen. Now, I'm not denying the fact there probably was violent threats. Okay, and I condemn them. Obviously, the show condemns them.
I mean, the Target thing and the beer boycotts.
But they're a minority compared to most.
No, I get that. Yeah. But these are the first sort of quote unquote conservative boycotts I have ever seen with any effect.
Exactly, 100%. And it's because of Chud Rage. It's because of the average like mom pa in America that like wants, you know what I mean? I know it's ridiculous to fight over these issues of like Target and Bud Light. And it's true. I know Sam Hyde had this great quote at the beginning of a Fish Tank where he's like, I can't say it for YouTube, but he's like, my certain slop isn't red pilled. Of course it's not red pilled. But at the same time, I feel like they do galvanize people. But, and so, yeah, I condemn any death threats and whatever towards Target and Bud Light and so forth. But I feel like those are the minority of the vast majority of people who are like just normal people that don't want this shoved in their face all the time. I feel like that is what drives these corporations to like really seriously think over their choices in terms of advertising rather than just like painting every single person that is against the Target, Satan worship, whatever, kitschy. Like, was it the Satan thing in Target? Was that what it was?
It was that, and they had like little like pins that you could put on your purse and jacket saying something like had a guillotine for like homophobes or cis people and things like that.
Oh, of course, because we all know that like, anti-fascism becomes politically kitchified and consumer capitalism, which is hilarious how you can buy the Triple Arrows shirt at a Hot Topic or whatever.
Yeah, you can buy 3 Arrows shirt right there. Like we've never left the 1920s. I swear. Time is a flat circle, and we're
really. Yeah, but that's what I mean, Prude. Like, what really pushes these things is just the average ordinary person getting fed up. It's not like okay, obviously it's wrong to send death threats. I agree.
It's like this. It's like the Spanish Civil War. Like they didn't care when priests were being murdered and these disgusting communists were exhuming the graves of
being
nuns.
Assaulted in a certain way. I can't say for
exactly. And so what actually started doing it was actually when they started shutting down access for everyday normal people and regular conservative people. They'll go after extremists and religious folk all the time. It's when people start going after the bread and butter that you actually need to live with and things like that. And that's what matters, I think, in that respect. They had a pin that says Satan loves your pronouns. Yeah, well, of course Satan loves your pronouns. Wow. The evil one is the ultimate seducer. He is the smartest,
so kitschy and ridiculous
animal in the Garden of Eden, the serpent. But let me go look up Dave's tweet.
No, but you know what I mean? Like this is like the after the orgy, like exhaustion of transgression. Like Satan loves my pronouns, like in Target. Like it's like if you're a serious like leftist, you should be ashamed of that. You should be like, oh my God, you mean to tell me that our thought is so normalized that it's like literally a Target pin? Like it's ridiculous.
Well,
Excuse me.
no, Dave says boycotts are inherently feminine because they are essentially about fashion and status. You win by being seen as higher status. Women have a preternatural ability to sense status in men and other women, so they tend to be good barometers for this process.
Yeah.
Unless his latest thing was no, that's his latest tweet. Yeah, no, that's very true.
Unfortunately, yeah. It's
This
true.
is why, like we talked about a couple episodes ago, like you kind of need a woman thing. Like you can't have a
Yeah.
politics that is explicitly anti-women. I mean, the Choreos thing is different. Like if you're going to go out and conquer something, or if you're going to go off to like Athos or whatever, that's different. But in this respect, you kind of need to. I and that's the thing. I used to like Target as well in this respect because Target looked like the girl. Like Target is like Walmart if it put a little effort up and put on some like makeup and eyeshadow and tried to look decent for you when you went out. Whereas like the Walmart girl is just gonna go out in like lounge pants and a t-shirt and no bra. And both can be nice and attractive in their own respective ways, but
Target failed here in Canada.
Target. So Walmart failed in Germany, if I recall correctly. So I mean, like,
wow.
Target was the good Walmart. This is true. Target was the Walmart that didn't make you feel as guilty about going. Walmart's like that fat girl that you can just call on the regular to get what you want. But you wouldn't tell your friends that you go there. But Target was definitely the thing about that. And yes, Glaucon, we talked about that just a little bit ago. Yeah, Target is Walmart, but with less minorities. Well, that's what Sam's Club now. You got to have money to go afford your Sam's Club and stuff.
Oh man. No, but yeah, I feel that's what I mean. Like it is boycotts usually never work unless you have a position of power, but at the same time, like a lot of like the Bud Light one in particular was stupid. Like I don't know, like buying Bud Light just to like pour it down the drain. That's you know what I mean.
Or Chud Rage in the aisles of a supermarket taking out Anheuser-Busch beers.
Yeah, like that's cringe to me. But at the same time, like a well organized boycott that actually does impact the bottom line of corporations, then that's pretty good. Like the Target thing was a huge W for us. But of course, like again, like I say again, we don't condone any death threats or violence or any of that, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
But I think like because that overshadows the good work that a lot of like Christian organizations and just ordinary people do to say like, you know what, let's not tolerate this anymore. Like this is too much. Like this is like it's a bit, you know what I mean? Like it's a bit too much. But like you know what I mean? It's so kitschy and stupid. Like Satan respects your pronoun. Of course Satan respects your pronouns. Like come on. Like it's just first of all,
it's
most
the
of
devil.
these people,
it's the devil. Come on.
First of all, most of these people don't even believe in the devil. So why would they wear this?
Which makes them the best target.
Exactly. Yeah. Target. No, but like that's what I mean. It's when the leftists, you know what really got me going was when recently, what incident was this? Something about racism, like, oh God,
this is America. You're gonna have to be really specific if you're gonna talk about racism. Sir.
It was a recent incident where these leftists were saying like, you're a ghoul, you're evil, God condemns you, you're not going to heaven for racism. It's like, wow, you suddenly believe in God now? Like that's really because the political left, like they abandoned
they're shady and slippery. Like they don't believe in Jesus Christ. They don't believe in anything other than the idea of materialistic, onanistic pleasure of, well, you believe in God and God says this according to me, is they like, just
no, of course I don't believe in your silly religion.
Yeah,
but maybe it might work on you. The counter signal.
Yeah, it's the perfect. It's the perfect smuggy atheist bit. Let me find that meme. Smuggy atheist meme.
Counter signal. Yeah, do that one.
Of course I don't believe. Of course I don't believe in your silly. There we go. Or the my personal favorite, of course, is the OMG, okay, lots of dead bodies and explosions in a big hostage situation. Cool, but can we chillax with the Islamophobia for 2 seconds?
That was, what's funny? It's funny how like right wing people will never like when they try to like pin it. Like, wasn't recently there was like an Indian guy that tried to do something.
Oh yes, the one that tried to ram like the White House gates. And
not suspicious there.
Not suspicious there, as they conveniently pull out a Indian symbol of peace, a Hindu symbol of peace, out of the U-Haul van to conveniently be photographed.
Well, we all know that India, Mexico, and Brazil are the biggest hotbeds of
No, they truly
white
are.
supremacy. Like, no, but unironically, it's true.
That's my favorite tweet. Is that there's a deleted scene in Guess Who's Back where Adolf is being mocked by Turks and Indians asking for his autograph.
I think Nemitz tweeted that.
That is
Yeah.
it's one of my all-time favorite tweets because it's so true. There's an unironic, disproportionate number of
Wignatism is a Wignatism is a Brahmin and untouchable movement. Yeah.
Remember, white supremacy is a multiracial movement, according to the internet and the Washington Post. And I knew they were never going to let that go. As soon as the 2020 election happened, and you saw the Rio Grande Valley swing red,
the Atlantic article,
multiracial
white supremacy.
Oh boy, now they've got all these like brown shooters that are happening, and they're like, well, remember, guys, like white supremacy it's a multiracial deal. Like we're putting the Indo and Indo-Aryan fellas.
A Telegram Odyssey Wignat who's like, you know what? I am a racist. I am an Austrian Painter fan. I do have a Latina girlfriend. I love her. Oh boy, I do have an Asian girlfriend. That was like that one clip from. No, never mind. I shouldn't bring up that clip.
Your average poll poster, so true. So true. Let's not
I am a siege poster. I do have an Asian girlfriend.
Remember when that used to be like a libertarian dunking point?
Yeah.
Libertarian guys
Wignac guys with Asian wives.
Or Wignac guys with ASCII wives. The meme just evolves, ladies and gentlemen. The meme just evolves.
There probably is some hardcore Wignac posters that have Latina girlfriends. That's probably true. Oh man,
Gee, Ford, I love her. I love her. Lord have mercy. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, right? It just goes down to, Twitter's going to be Twitter will be the. It won't be like 2016. It won't be like 2020. You will get. Listen, all of those, like, this tweet cannot be shared because of like misinformation or whatever. That will happen again, but it will be under the guise of community notes. It will be weaponized against you. We're laughing now because we can prove 1350 is real. It's actually like 13 plus like 64, but it'll be used against the right very soon. Oh,
definitely.
Although it can be gamed. Our mutual friend Popehead gamed the system here about calling a majority of Biden's administration Mormons, to which they were community notes says, actually no, all of these guys are Jewish. And then the community notes had a fight in real time about whether to keep it up about the naming them.
Yeah, that was crazy.
There was default friend. It was called Neo Ned with Jeremy Renner and Gabrielle Union, where Gabrielle Union thinks that she is
the
reincarnation of an Austrian painter, and Jeremy Renner is like trying to is a skinhead.
He was like an escaped mental patient.
Yeah, an escaped mental patient. So was she. They were both. I think they both met in the psych ward.
No, that's a real love story.
That's a real love story. We should review that movie one of these days.
We should. No, but like I think a serious answer though to the whole like multiracial white supremacy is that like, okay. Oh man, I'm gonna burn. Who am I burning my credibility with here, Prude? People on the right or like leftists?
See when we get there.
No, I think that it is. There are people of different like especially like I do notice that there are like a lot of like Latinos and Indians and so
the racist community is incredibly diverse.
Yeah, I know that's like a cool meme. Even like Orc Brand himself said he regrets tweeting that, by the way, because it is kind of cool. But like, there is a case to be made that yes, there are people of different ethnic descents who are taken in by these ideas. But like, first of all, the recent one with the guy at the White House, that's kind of suspicious. Not gonna say anything, right? But it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like there's some, I don't know. It doesn't add up to me. Okay. But the ones that are like, first of all, when me and Prude, when we both say that there's some merit to like the radicalization pipeline, we don't mean like the way that they mean it, where it's like some disenfranchised incel of any ethnic makeup is going to like go and commit public mass casualty fund posting. I think that what we mean is that the awareness of the way that ideas spread inevitably come at a chain of Prude dropped out. So I mean, I was Fed posting too much. Now it's time to Fed post. No, he'll come back. He'll come back. What I mean is that there is a chain of events that happens where you do get interested in certain ideas and it naturally grows. And this happens to the political left as well. I mean, the left has their own radicalization pipeline, as we know. I mean, it's just so stupid to point out because every ideology inevitably builds on its constituent parts that is at a lower level to a higher level. But when it comes to like certain people of other, ethnic origins that are taken in by right-wing ideals, I mean, yeah, it's true. Obviously, there is something to it. But to say that like the way that the media frames it as like multiracial white supremacy is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. But it's like, the bread tubers and the media, it's like the way that they make hay out of this is just ridiculous. But at the same time, yeah, it's kind of true that there is, I mean, we all know that there's people of Latina and subcontinental and so forth and other Asian, Chinese and so forth, whatever origins who are, who are pretty hardcore, for lack of a better term, white nat posters, right? But that is the reality. But the way that the media frames it is kind of like ridiculous. And there are like big normie con posters like Jack Posobiec who are like, or Matt Walsh who are like the first to be like, haha, this is ridiculous. And it is ridiculous. But I do think that it's very easy for the political left to go to these big normie cons who are slightly edgy, like Agent Poso and Matt Walsh, and be like, you know what? That's not the real issue because these people are objectively, Indian or Chinese or Mexican, and they're taken in by white supremacist ideas. You know what I mean? It's a very stupid game that both sides play where they're like, no, this is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous headline. It's not real multiracial white supremacy. But then the political left plays this other stupid game where they're like, no, actually, that's not what we mean by it. You know what I mean? It's sort of like when DeSantis answered that question, which I wrote a thread on, where it's like Florida isn't safe for BIPOC and LGBT plus people, blah, blah, blah. DeSantis responds by saying, no, Florida is physically safer than a lot of other states and crime is
but like your thread pointed out, it never addresses the ontological or metaphysical evil or safety bit that they have.
Yeah. That you're not welcome as an impossible woman or whatever. That you're not welcome as a BIPOC person in Florida. That's what they mean. They mean this like pleroma of violence that the political, the fascists, quote unquote, inflict. And so Ron Paul, by going to the typical normie con, no, actually, it's safe for everybody, and Florida has the best African-American business ownership, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's the typical Republican talking.
I know he had the worst parts of like Trump's black pandering in that one sentence. Actually, the president of the NAACP is here. We have more black heads of agency in my administration than ever before. And oh, by the way, it's a really great time to move down here with all this net in migration into Florida. And I'm just like, oh no, it's the worst thing imaginable in one sentence from the worst man.
Hypocrites,
and Marvin Beak here over like Ron has gone insane. It was bad. It was so bad.
Oh man. Whereas really any Republican politician would be just to negate the premise, to be like,
we could have had the golden circle, but here we are.
Yeah. No, but like that's what I mean. I feel like Republicans will start, as time goes on, as the rhetoric of the mainstream left gets more insane. Sorry, to quote the meme, as the left goes insane. I think like even average Republicans would be like, you know what? We don't care anymore about this like little Republican optics game that has been happening since Ronnie Reagan, to be like, you know what? The left are the real racists.
Well, it's like that joke.
The left are the real transphobes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that too, right? But it's also that joke about what do you call the one black guy in a Republican convention? You call him Mr. Chairman.
Oh man,
it's again, there's that xenophilia aspect to the GOP establishment. It's just a mess. Excuse me.
No, but that's the thing. There are like very strong Black Republicans, just that like to fetishize them. I mean, the political left is kind of not to pull a whole, Covfeffian on the left is more correct than mainstream, but there is sort of like a creepiness to like the fact that like a lot of Republican GOP establishment people, they have this like weird fetish over the Black Republican. It's very much is like this, the undertone of it is, well, I can
Stone Toss is so true. He's never been wrong about that issue. I'm sorry, like that guy doesn't have one bad comic. But like it goes back to this whole GDP econ worship thing, and this is my biggest gripe with the political games. I mean, both sides do this, and this goes back to that frustration about like politics being fake and gay,
right?
Because it's just like anytime with the GDP purchasing power, like this is from our friend Dark Enlightenment, and he says there are 5 things that you should really measure how prosperous a society is. Are the people safe? Are the people healthy? Is the basic infrastructure well maintained? Are the poor few in number and not sleeping in the streets? And are the middle classes the majority and having healthy families?
Right.
So if that's not the case, then you're a shithole.
But that's like one last point I have about the radicalization pipeline is that for every one person that allegedly will go out and do this like mass casualty fund posting, for every like one of those, there's probably 10,000 or more where I hate to say it, and I think like who said it? It must have been some NRX blogger. Or no, it was Dave actually that said, the problem is that sometimes maybe the red pills are not good for people just in terms of like their own personal lives. Because I think like Dave, unfortunately, like as much as I don't want to admit this, because it is severely like a sobering truth, is that maybe for every one person that is motivated to do something they shouldn't do, the vast majority of a lot of like especially when it comes to the incel question, is that a lot of them, most of them, the vast majority will in fact inwardly collapse themselves through these realizations and through these red pilling truths, right? No, it was Dave Distributist where he said
I just thought that was funny. Some
NRX blogger. It was Nick
blogger. Can we make that a slur?
A blogger?
Blogger slurs.
Oh boy.
These bloggers.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying touch grass. What I mean is that there are a lot of people that I feel in these spheres, this thing of ours, where they need to be presented a more positive alternative to things, because in a lot of ways, this is where all these sociological researchers, all these lefties academics that talk about I'm an academic in extremism. It's like they don't get it. Okay,
I know the left has gone insane.
Right, exactly. No, the reason they don't get it is because this information destroys a lot of people, mentally. It really leads to, not that it leads to misery, because I feel like truth for its own sake has to be honored and protected. But Dave got at a really pertinent point in that for a lot of like young men in particular that don't have the greatest luck with women, that don't have the greatest prospects, that had their future robbed from them, that are demonized, right? That a lot of this like constant goon caving with this type of content maybe wouldn't be the healthiest for them. And that maybe there should be a way of presenting truth with something more positive and life affirming. And I feel like this is why I focus on things like arts and culture and artistic creation, because I think that there is a side effect to the black pill, 100%.
Well, or if you OD on red pills, this is
or you OD on red pills and you say things maybe you shouldn't say in public, and I feel like you OD on red pills and then you go crazy. There should be a way of preventing, especially young men, from going crazy like this, and there should be an affirmation to saying that if you know of these truths, that you're standing on the precipice of things that are greater than yourself. God, tradition, beauty, health, art, you name it, right? That should be the focus. It shouldn't be like, here is why life is shit, and you're always going to be shit, and you're an incel, and you haven't had sex, and you're 30 years old, and you haven't had sex yet, okay? Sorry.
Is this the? I have our mutual friend Anacardo likes to say
Jackson,
that we have somebody that we have a 15-minute therapy session every episode.
Yeah, that's true. It's true.
So there you go.
Yeah, it's funny because on my show, on when I do the show on my channel, it's like you have a therapy session. When I'm in your channel, it's like I have a therapy session. Donald Trump, Davey, come on, you didn't know this? Come on, this is deep geo lore right here. But no, what I'm saying is that I feel like the whole the
you
sort
and
of
Templar both.
Oh man, I didn't know that about Lou Templar, but no, but I'm saying like there's like the way that a lot of these like bread tubers, like ContraPoints, and a lot of these academics and these Antifa people, the way they talk about their radicalization pipeline and the incel and so forth, it's a biopolitical category that's meant to box in dissident thought, obviously. But I think like if you truly wanted to help these young men, it isn't to like demonize them and say that you have to like whatever. Like it's also, and I hate to say it, but I know I'm going to alienate a lot of people here. People are saying like go to church. Yes, of course, go to church. But I think it's not as simple as a lot of like what Christians think of it as. Because if you're totally alienated, if you are brought up in a materialist culture and mindset, and you don't have a lot of those underpinnings that people had, even 15 years ago, I feel like the whole like go to church pill, it's not the whole story, in my opinion. Yes, you should go to church. You should seek spiritual guidance. You should, but I think like there has to be steps put in place before you can be a sincere religious person, besides like being taken in by an aesthetic or just going to church and like not really getting it. Because that I feel like in some ways that could damage people on their road towards the value of Christianity and so forth, that you can like be all in on the aesthetic and not really think about the doctrine and how it affects your life and your soul and so forth. I think like just blindly saying go to church is probably not like, it's part of the message, but it shouldn't be the whole, like in terms of like an aesthetic thing, in terms of like a trend, a fad. Like Christianity should not be a fadism. It shouldn't be like an aesthetic that you wear. Like I'm a punk rocker, I'm a goth, right? It's like, you know what I mean? I'm an emo. It's like, no, it should be something more meaningful than that. And I feel like a lot of young people that grow up in the culture that we're growing up in, they don't have the proper education from the time that they were young. And there should be steps to like progressively aid people within the faith rather than just saying, go to church and that will solve all your problems. You know what I mean? I think that's a failure of evangelism right there, that the praxis of faith should be more instantiated rather than just saying, go to church and all your problems will be solved. It's like saying, it's like masculinity grifters that say, get a GF and all your problems will be solved. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Like, if anything, having a GF complicates your life. Having faith complicates your life, and you should be ready for that complication. Sorry, I'm going off Prude right now, but I don't know if you agree with me on that. But I'm trying to be charitable. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that a lot of online Christians, they don't do this purposefully. They're certainly better than the masculinity grifters. I'm just saying that a lot of the younger ones, they can be wrong-headed in their approach to very vulnerable, very distraught young people, not just young men, young women as well, that want a solution that is quick and easy and easily digestible. It shouldn't be quick and easy and digestible. It should be more meaningful in terms of an engagement with faith. And I feel like just by saying that, if you love the aesthetics of Orthodoxy, if you love the aesthetics of Catholicism, you love the aesthetics of trad-based homesteading, blah, 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 or whatever, or I guess you love the aesthetics of being a post-human demigod if you're a Landian, right? It's like, no, it should be, to fundamentally transform your life in a very lowly state, the sensitive young man or the sensitive young woman has to be, molded into something greater. And I think that just by LARPing something, I mean, yes, LARPing is a gateway to something more, but it should be the first step. I don't want young people to be turned away from Christianity and from, the political right by thinking that it's just a fad and that you're being taken in by the, aesthetic of something. And then it's like, I was an emo when I was a kid, but now I'm a dime store hipster, because I grew up and I'm a millennial. I was an emo in 2007. No, it shouldn't be that way. Like, faith should not be a trend like being an emo or being a hipster.
Yeah, but many people
Yeah.
do. And this is like the
Yeah.
key problem
Yeah,
that you'll see
exactly.
on the internet. And this happens alongside
Oh man.
you see this alongside with anyone that's like said, I was this and I've rebuilt my life
Yeah.
from all things. And like this is my
Oh,
problem with
you get people like
yeah,
Hunter
yeah,
Avalon after
yeah,
that.
catch it. I agree with you completely. That's a big problem.
Yeah.
And wholeheartedly agree with that. It's a huge issue.
Oh, which company you're responding to?
The firstification of Christianity.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of point there, and default friend, whoever this is, citing Matt 633. That's how I know it's not Catherine D. But like,
oh boy.
Again, you go to church to commune with Christ and to understand the mysteries of thy unapproachable and unimaginable glory, not to be based.
And to be fair, orthos do. Like, I know you're
they're the worst.
Do this as well.
This is the worst Twitter branch part of all things. This is why, like, I make it a very big deal to say I didn't find the church through the internet. It's the fucking worst.
Well, us tradcaps take a lot of L's on the internet. Come on, let's face it. But the orthos do as well.
All do. And also because like any convert, especially a Western convert, is going to have their version of the stage cage. It's just fucking awful.
No, but the problem is, like, and this is the dark side of 2016, I feel, is that when you have like young people that are like, they're infatuated with like Chan culture and right-wing politics on the internet, the e-right, and like it's edgy and so forth. The problem is that when you're not grounded in a true, like, authentic worldview, you know what you get at the end of it? You get Hunter Avalon. That's who you get. You get like people that were like
you get Caleb Kane and Hunter Avalon and President Sunday and all that bullshit.
You get people that feel that they're burned by right-wing politics and by faith, and then they become like the total radical opposite, because it's like, these people burned me and then I was taken in and I was like, no, you know what I mean? Like, it's the problem. You don't want empty-headed converts. You want people that are quick on their feet, that are authentic in their faith or their politics. And yes, the dark side of 2016. I know.
No, but I mean, it's 100% true. And I mean, even before 2016, this was the case with a lot of like Chan and image forum culture. It's like, all I can offer you is a few words or maybe an essay or a link, and nothing that was furthermore than anything else than that. And so there was a lack of authenticity. And so what do you fall into? You fall into either ideological playing grounds that have a little bit of substantive theology behind it, which is never really anything. And then secondly, you get a LARP, or you get a name, a label and name only. And so it's like, I'm not a big Christianity poster on Twitter. Maybe I should do more of that, because I like to.
Yeah, me either.
But again, it's about an authentic life. Like, I'm there at my church at least 3 or 4 times a week. I'm in the choir. I do things that I don't brag about because, again, humility and all that shit. But it's just like, if you're living it authentically, I don't think you need to be overly performative about it. And that's the biggest problem.
And I think like a good, like, one last thing I'll say is that I'm not trying to, like, just for the simple fact of, like, I don't want to cause drama. Like, I'm not accusing like specific people or posters or whatever of doing this. I'm just saying in general, this is a problem with a lot of like contemporary e-right and e-Christian politics. You know what I mean? So
it's a disaster. And I mean, like, there was a point that Catherine wrote forever ago saying, like, a lot of this like dime square Catholicism will be looked at as Bernie Bros from 2016 and 2020. Oh
God, yeah.
And she's right. And that's the case. Is what
maybe Dasha will move to Islam after this.
You have to again, like, it becomes a meme in right-wing circles to say become worthy. But what people meme out of the become worthy aspect, and maybe we should devote an episode on this topic, or maybe we can talk about this with Con Caracol when we're on his channel in a couple weeks, is that the big issue is that, and it's the issue of meaning, and it's the issue of what am I doing with myself? Because the answer, of course, like in Christianity, of course, is going to be, in Matthew chapter 6, well, what shall we eat? What shall we drink? What shall we wear? Christ gives you the answer. Whereas without a positive ideal or an ascertaining of virtue that requires effort, You know, like how many people have we noticed on Twitter where they'll puff their chest saying that like they're a big guy that can lift XYZ and that they're totally natty, and then we find out that they're selling liver supplements and they're taking, you know, growth hormone. Or
Yeah.
you find, or they get doxxed and they turn out to be some scrawny kid from like, you know, Colorado who's like Mexican or something. Like these things happen. Whereas like the guy that claims I'm just a simple, you know, merchant farmer of memes that likes to talk about things, turns out he's actually authentic. Like you need those things. And so the problem, and this is
That's why I became a face lord, because imagine if I got doxxed.
Yeah, right.
And I'm just some fat guy from Ontario.
But the point that I think is the real key takeaway is that there's a crisis of meaning. This is what got a lot of those a lot of the Jordan Peterson attention, you know, 5-6 years ago, was that there's a crisis of meaning, especially in young men. That cannot be understated. And it only gets worse with Zoomers, because they will burn through every quadrant of the political compass. They will try every religion. They will try every fad until they are an empty, soulless husk that is willing to mutilate themselves to find meaning. Secondly, there's this huge crisis for a lack of masculine and patriarchal virtue. There's not a lot of fathers these days. More people grow up in single parent homes. It gets really sad when there are YouTube channels like Dad How Do I or How to Dad that try and offer fatherly advice to strangers on the internet. You cannot parasocialize fatherhood. You cannot. And it gets really, and I've had this happen to me where people will DM me asking for advice or opinions on faith and religion and things like that. And I can't tell you that. I'm not your father, but I can tell you some of the things that I've done that I've screwed up on and things like that. You will not find meaning as conscious character. You won't find it in a LARP, because at the end of the day, everyone knows that you're LARPing. Everyone knows, and you will know it. You will know it at the end of the day when you go to bed. And that's why I say the same thing over and over again. If you turn off your screen when you get ready to go to bed at night, do you like your reflection in the phone screen?
And this is a universal thing, right?
Yeah, this does not just apply to like Christianity. This applies to all things in life.
No, but nowadays, okay, it's very easy to say like Jordan Peterson's my dad, Sam Hyde is my dad. Who else am I thinking? Joe Rogan, you know, that's centrist.
Or like that Tumblr post of like, we're the first generation raised on the internet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, but then like they have it too, right? Like the Zoomer kiddies on Twitch, it's like Hassan Piker is my dad, Vaush is my dad. I was gonna say Destiny, but like
Destiny's your stepdad.
Destiny's Destiny's the dad that stepped up. You know,
after having a mixed race child.
Giant Gio's Gio Penicetti's my dad.
That's a boy.
God. Can you imagine if some e-girl wants to call me daddy? That's fine.
Well, that's, I guess, different.
That's different. Yeah, it's different when like a woman seeks. But then again, like that's, you know what I mean? Like I know we joke about it, but then it's like having had like at least a few young women that are like, you know, that have DM'd me for advice. It's like I would feel like kind of shitty about, you know what I mean? Like it's like you don't want to exploit it.
No,
young man or young woman, you don't want to exploit anybody's trust. You know what I mean? If they're looking for you advice,
that's the big thing. I think it's a real test of your online personality is what kind of advice you give. And I mean, I have a post that'll probably come out this weekend or maybe Monday on Substack about this, because like there's so much of this millennial naive culture. Right? I mean, don't have that. Secondly, but like the other thing is that you have like from the 2000s of like the Zach Braffs of the world to even today with like Will Wood songs, there is this perpetual message that's being sent to young men about like actually insecurity and being like overtly complex about things is a really good example. And then you have the opposite of that, which is like fucking Andrew Tate, which is awful. And
Andrew Tate is my dad. Yeah,
you have these two opposites of like millennial insecurity and Nihilene that tells you actually no, it's a good thing to embrace the fetishization of your own misery, and you should self-sabotage that relationship, and it'll be okay, and eventually it'll all work out when it really doesn't. And then on the other hand, you have like, you know, the Andrew Tate of the world telling you how to do things. Both of these are horrible examples for young men. And I'm only saying this because like I come from like the Zach Braffs, the Shins, the Decemberists of the world, where like actually, yes, fetishizing my own misery is a good thing. And that's actually the worst fucking thing that you can do. And it will lead you to self-sabotage relationships. It will leave you more miserable than ever before. And it will leave you genuinely looking back thinking, I have made some genuine mistakes. Exactly. And I don't want that to happen with people. And so again, I think that it was interesting when some people will say, we have to. I don't agree with the term retreat to religion. I do agree with. I agree with the idea that it can be a way forward for you to find an answer to things that are important to you, but you have to find that meaning for yourself and have spiritual advice and a spiritual father for that. But you cannot look towards the culture and the spirit of the age to do it, because the spirit of the age and the culture for this week's therapy session chat is that they'll simply tell you that it's okay to be miserable and to make bad decisions. And yes, Frasier only on the NES. Dave is the nominee for the EDAD. I would agree with that. Dave
Look at these.
seems to be the one guy that has his shit together on this side of the right. But yeah, these are the things.
Look at
we
these
have to
comments.
Consider. I know.
Um,
Gio's my dad. Scott Greer is my dad.
Scott Greer is my dad. John Winthrop is my dad.
You might learn a thing or two from John Winthrop as your father. Let's not kid ourselves.
That's very true. You would.
You'll learn a lot. Focus on the magma chamber. We can end it all here.
Well, that was Hakan.
I know, but still, those two guys are my favorite Twitter posters that aren't back. Molly Meme. I don't know if you want Molly Meme as your father. You'll talk back to him, and he'll just be like, "That's not an argument. Go to your room."
Well, he'd want a defoo from you if he was your dad. But
oh Lord,
Aaron Clary is my dad. No, but like I said this before in the show that the influence of Andrew Tate is like largely a negative in the world. I mean,
yes.
So you know what's funny is that people, like, speaking of Sam Hyde, is that there was a moment on Fish Tank recently where John was going like absolutely fucking crazy, and like he like started attacking Letty, and like he broke a bunch of stuff, and then like of course like they destroyed the washing machine, and then Sam Hyde was like genuinely pissed because John's going crazy, and John was gonna like rip up Letty's passport, and it would have been like here's the thing. I know it's like for content, right? Like on Fish Tank, the content of it, like go to the extreme, push the limits. But then at the same time, it's like Sam Hyde and Jet and Ben and all those guys that are running Fish Tank, like they have to suffer like real world consequences if someone gets hurt or if someone has their property damaged. And it's like Sam Hyde was pissed. He started like throwing things in the garage because it's like, yeah, it's joke, it's haha, it's whatever. But at the same time, it's like when you're like running a real business, like what Sam is doing, Sam is essentially a businessman now, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when you have to like deal with the contents, the consequences of what you're doing, it's like, yeah, it's real for Sam Hyde. He probably is. I know he strings people along because of the show, but he probably is losing money. They probably are losing their shirt over this fucking Fish Tank Live. That probably is real, even though they know that,
again, it's like with television and celebrity, these people's lives are forever ruined or changed at the very least. Like these people 100%. Will get recognized in public.
People are gonna like forever look at Letty and be like, "You're the piss queen for eternity." Like she'll go on Twitch or whatever, and that's what they'll spam the chat with. "You're the piss queen." Yeah. So it's like, yeah, Airsoft Fatty will. Well, actually, Chris is a different example.
Money for him.
Yeah, they're raising money for him because of it to put him in another trailer. But like, Chris,
I know Frasier, but I'm not watching it, so I rely on Gio to tell me about this stuff. Andrew Dice Clay is better than Andrew.
100%.
You can still see some shows of Andrew Dice Clay on.
Andrew Dice Clay would be a better father than Andrew Tate.
I agree.
Is Andrew Tate?
You get your 5 minutes of fame is basically that.
Yeah. People will forever look at John as like John 10. People always, Josie will be. She's probably the least affected by Fish Tank because people will always like think she's the cute mid Indigenous girl. She's like the least affected, but Letty is, her life will forever be changed. Like Chris's life was already changed by being on, iDubbbz' show, but Chris is at rock bottom, and Chris is a very complicated figure because at the one end, like he does do a lot of terrible stuff, but then he is sort of like, the sort of like oaf down in his luck. But I should really just write the definitive penultimate Substack on Fish Tank. Josie is biologically female, I think. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
I want a plushie. Meow, meow, meow. I can't get that stupid fucking... when she did that, the plushie drive, I couldn't get that out of my head. I want a plushie. Meow, meow. Because it's like, she realizes it's so cynical to like beg for the plushies. Because you know the plushie's like $500, eh? To give to Josie a plushie. They're
$500?
Yeah, to buy Josie a $2 plushie.
Lord have mercy.
Were you gonna say Brood? No, Josie's indigenous. She's not Asian. She's indigenous.
I've got nothing to add on the fish tank discourse. I think their lives are forever ruined by this little event here, and I don't think it'll be good for them at the end of the day. Like I did that thread on Buc-ee's, and that is the only place I've been recognized publicly. And
really?
Yeah, no, it was the guy. It was like because I bought a chicken sandwich because they have a little brisket station. If you've ever been inside of Buc-ee's, you people will know what I'm talking about. But you go in there, they sell stuff like that.
I'm gonna go to Buc-ee's one.
The guy he's chopping up, he's putting sandwiches down on the little heater table thing for you to pick up as you walk around. He's like, "I know you," and I thought nothing of it, and I was like, "I really don't think you do." And he's like, "No, I know you," and I was just like, "Yeah, from where?" I getting really uncomfortable. I was like, "What the fuck,
man?"
And
I had a dream once where a beautiful woman recognized me on the street once.
Oh, who doesn't dream of that? But he goes, "I know you," and I was like, "Yeah, from where?" And he's just like, "You're that guy with the frog on the Twitter account." And I was like, I suppose. And I was like, "Oh, the game's up now." I was like, "Well, I suppose that's me." And he's like,
"If the Buc-ee's cashier's watching this, you're a champ."
Yeah, yeah. If you're the guy behind the brisket board at that Buc-ee's, at that one place, then congratulations, you've had your 15 seconds of fame on this
brisket
little brisket guy. Recognized you're the Prudentialist, and I was like, "Yeah, I guess that's me, isn't it?" And I was just like, "Wow, this is the first time this has ever happened," and I didn't know how to take that.
How are you gonna prepare yourself for it when it happens?
What even has been this episode? So you guys talked about the race for like 45 minutes. Welcome to the Digital Archipelago. For whatever the topic and the title is, we maybe get 45 minutes max before we talk about everything else.
Well, let's close the show on the race, but let me just read this comment by Javier. Gio, no offense, man, but I can't think of anything that matters less than fish tank. Oh my God. I think it truly is like an internet lore phenomenon that will have importance. It's one of those like weirdo internet things where it's like the internet that bleeds out to the IRL. It's sort of like, do you remember that like Microsoft protest back in like 1999?
Oh yeah,
where they like redeemed their code. There's like a Wikipedia page about it. It's like, it reminds me of like the early internet had so much things I feel that are like lost to the sands of time that people that were there remember, like forums and so forth. And like, but now that the internet is sort of like in a much more of like a truly democratized and global place, now you can sort of like remember those things. Like you can remember like, okay, where were you when you were watching Fish Tank and you saw that like truly one of the most surreal moments where like Ben like told Letty to like put John's Bible in the washing machine, and then John gets all like pissed and he's like throwing the like Bible pulp on Letty while she's trying to clean, because it was like it was like such a surreal like Lynchian moment. It's like, where were you when you saw John throwing exsanguinated pieces of clumps of Bible at Letty in Fish Tank? Where were you when they all had to stay on the piss bed?
You make this sound like a 9/11 thing.
I know, right? I'm good at that.
That's terrifying that you would try and make that comparison.
Listen, Gamergate was more important than that. No, I shouldn't say that about.
No, because Gamergate didn't kill anybody.
No, but according to Brianna Wu, it did.
Gamergate killed 3,000 people and millions more afterwards in 2 wars in the Middle East.
According to the media, according to the media, that's what they think. They think that Gamergate literally led to.
I'm not familiar with the show, says Cody Browning, but I'm confident everyone belongs in prison. It's like the Norm Macdonald bit. This may come as a shock to some viewers, but I think everyone in this story should be dead. Yeah, Gamergate did elect a president, though. That is true.
That's very true. Who led to the deaths of countless
libtards.
Yeah. So
Today's show was supposed to be a movie review, The Place Beyond the Pines, but then DeSantis said he was going to go into his candidacy on Twitter, and we said, fuck that, we're going to do rank punditry, baby, because you never listen to your audience, you listen to what they consume, and the view count is higher than usual when we talk about politics and shit. So
there you go.
It's a good, it's true. Gamergate killed General Soleimani.
Oh no!
Weekend update with Prude. Honest to God, I love Norm Macdonald weekend update posting. Are we getting the Gosling Kino next week? Are we doing the Kino Gosling?
You want to do that or Nathan Barley? Let's do Gosling and then Nathan.
Let's do Gosling and then we'll do Nathan Barley. A guy from my chat once ran up to me at a music festival, CC, and bought me a drink. Well, that's very nice.
That's nice.
That's good.
Because when I read for a slight second, Conscious Car Call that said a guy ran up to me and I'm like, oh God, no! Like it's, I was, it is South Africa, so.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, these are the things that we have to consider. Gamergate turned Gialimani into Pico de Gallo. Oh, these are only getting better and better. Man. But it's so true. It's so
crazy.
True.
Soleimani posting.
I loved it though when he the day after or like after the news was broke, Trump posts the lowest resolution American flag JPEG on Twitter.
That was great.
It all fits together, man.
Let's talk about. Oh, did you see what Trump posted after the space?
Yes, he did with the AI generated
so
George Soros, Adolf, what's his name, and Elon and Ron DeSantis and all the worst of the worsts all listening in. It was so good. And it got and of all people, that Edwimania guy, Shoes boyfriend.
It's Edwimania. I thought it was eudaimonia.
Eudaimonia. I'm just giving him a tough time.
Edwimania.
Yeah, but anyways, he posted it, and it got over 2 million views, and it has more views, I still think, than the actual Twitter Space announcement itself.
But it was so BoomerCon how it was Satan next to the Austrian painter,
next to
and they used the downfall
Mr. Schicklgruber and George Soros, who won't stop talking.
Schwab.
Dick Cheney is still coughing. It was so good.
Can I just announce my fucking run now? Oh, we know, Ron. We know.
Ron. We know.
That was hilarious. I think that was Donald Trump. Was he punching at Elon too? Probably. Because Elon is
I would. I mean, the guy's been egging me on to come back to Twitter since his account was brought back. And yes, Gamergate is responsible for most of us being here. That's so true. But
then it's really that was such a heel promo from Trump because at
the
very end, Trump goes into the call in the fake. He's like, I'm Donald Trump and I'm going to ruin you, DeSantis. I'm going to run wild on DeSantis. That was classic, man. That was I think some Zoomer or some millennial that works for the Trump campaign probably saw those gamer Trump edits. You know, the one where Donald Trump's playing video games. It's a Call of Duty it's a Call of Duty server. He's like, is that your house? He's like, oh, no, that's my grandma's.
Oh, he reads off the address from
New Mexico.
Bad.
Yeah. Oh, was it the Breaking Bad address?
I love those little AI president play video games thing. It's just Trump playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. He's like, Obama, this was the best part of your presidency.
And Obama says 2 words, but it's mostly Trump and Biden arguing. That was so hilarious.
Good. Yeah, he's like, I remember this back in the day playing some, put on some classic Drake. Obama, this part was the best game of your presidency. It was just
gaming was the best part.
What
of
a
Trump's,
weird. Well, yeah, because he
Obama's
takes office
presidency,
in the midst of the Great Recession. And all of a sudden, we're all these out of work white guys doing.
They're gaming.
We're gaming, and it was the perfect tool. It was the perfect pacification tool.
Yep.
And then women had to fuck it up. They
had to ruin it.
They had to ruin it. You could have had all these disaffected young white males perfectly pacified, and then all of a sudden, 5th generational warfare brought off, and they sank this and. All of a sudden, reviving. Yes, Mr. Wegner. I don't want to say his name, so I had to go with that lore a little bit there.
Oh boy.
for obvious reasons.
Yeah, Barack Obama truly was the gamer president.
New atheism laid the groundwork for gamer. Few know this.
It's
Few
very
know
no,
this.
it's true. Yeah,
very
no, there's a
true.
whole genealogy there. It's very
Yeah.
true. But should we like say one more thing about where do you think the DeSantoid campaign is going to go? I mean,
well, it only just started.
Yeah, we can't know for sure.
The real question will be like this is the question because like okay, cool, he's running. The question will be okay, what's your ground game going to look like for Iowa, New Hampshire,
Yeah,
Nevada, and South Carolina? Like what? That's it. And like he's gonna have to play the same strategy that Marco Rubio played. I have to win Florida. I have to win the
Yeah.
Florida primary. I have to win
well,
Florida.
that's what Patrick Casey said. Can you imagine if like Florida went to Trump and not DeSantis? That would be like
It was the same thing with Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio lost Florida, and that's when that's when he left.
Oh my
And that was
god.
it. So, and I mean, it's the same problem that John Kasich had. He's like, oh, I'm going to win the Ohio primary, and then Kasich had no plan afterwards.
Oh, I remember Kasich. Yeah, he was a dud.
Yeah, DeSantis has been campaigning long before the announcement. That's innately true. The real question is going to be, are the people that he's working with in the Heritage Foundation and the Daily Wire cohorts of the world, what's the ground game going to look like? Because out of all these presidential campaigns, Trump is the only one that has a national infrastructure to get votes, to fundraise, and to put out GOTV call efforts. I don't know how quickly you can assemble this for. I mean, we still got plenty of time.
Yeah.
But the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that Trump's got to be physically back in court in New York in December, which is when you want to be in New Hampshire and Iowa.
Right.
So keep in mind, like you've got
really December. Why?
Yeah, December 4th.
That's where
That's when he has to be in court in person.
Who's got the earliest primaries? Is it New Hampshire?
New Hampshire.
Yeah. Like, how do they get away with that legally? You'd figure, like, why don't they have a law where it's like every state has to do their primary on the same date, or that I don't know, is that unconstitutional or?
It's just that's how it's always been.
That's kind of like here in Canada. We just like call an election whenever. It's like, well, I mean, you have to wait a few like years, but it's like, we don't have a set date, which I feel like that's one good thing the Americans.
Well, I mean, the reason why is because each state has their own election laws. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
For New Hampshire and Iowa, they're the first ones.
Yeah. That's like a dick measuring contest, though, isn't it?
This is subject to change. This is the thing that Ronna McDaniel has talked about. Iowa is the first primary. New Hampshire has its caucus, but it's the same. They about picking. But yeah, this is the thing Ronna McDaniel's been talking about, is embracing the ballot harvesting mail-in ballot game, whereas Trump is like this you don't have control over it, so why bother? And I think this will be the case. And again, this isn't like 2016 or 2020. Well, I mean, it's a little more like 2020 because you have an entire administration's term worth to look at. And everyone will focus on the last year of his presidency rather than the first three. Like, Trump is going to focus so much on the issue of his, administration, about the economy, no wars, trying to get peace with South Korea. We weren't at war with Russia. Whereas, anyone who's campaigning against him, Democrat or otherwise, will simply say, yeah, but you shat the bed in 2020.
Yeah. No, but that's what I mean. Like, I think like
I saw someone say that Israel's the new Iowa. Well, he did sign that law in Tel Aviv. Lord have mercy.
Oh God. But no, but like when it comes to like winning these states, like, yeah. So DC Insider, a good friend, maybe we could have him on the show. When we have another politics stream, maybe close to the election, he said, like, Patrick Casey said, word in the streets is that Ron has pretty much abandoned Florida. I don't know how true that is. I mean, Ron, like, his powerhouse is in Florida, but then
his entire political machine is in Florida. How the hell do you abandon your own state?
But then, like, I mean, it's hard to say because his political machine is there, but at the same time, like, I feel like Ron probably does have to, like, make people the sort of selling point of, like, I'm going to make America Florida is sort of like, you know what I mean? Like, he's gonna have to like tell these different people, even in like blue states that can sort of be converted. It's like he's gonna have to like find a way to say that, actually I have national appeal. I know it's like a normie con take, but it's like he's gonna have to find a way to say, no, I have national appeal. And like I'm just thinking, how can he do that?
No,
Like,
I agree. I agree.
He's
And
very Florida centric.
that will be the focus of how can I translate local success into national appeal.
Yeah.
And that will be the key thing, is how can you translate local to national, and how can you overcome unsolicited mail-in ballots?
Yeah.
Those are the two challenges. That's it.
I think the mail-in ballots thing would be a huge step in the right direction for any Republican.
If you can take advantage of it or to win it. But yeah, I don't know.
Like that's, I mean, is there a precedent for him to like just totally ban it, or that couldn't happen?
No, because all elections are, it's 50 different election laws in 50 different states.
Yeah, exactly.
And what if we don't want to be Florida, will be the other question.
That's another thing too, is that, it will spark like a sort of federalism problem of like, each state has its own unique character. And it's like, well, Ron DeSantis wants to make America Florida, but then it's like that comes with its own issues and its own optics. And, I mean, there's a lot of challenges to the DeSantis campaign. I feel like people like Ben, like Little Ben and all those people. And is Matt Walsh behind Trump or DeSantis?
I don't know if he's made an endorsement, but
of course, right? So yeah,
the only people, I mean, there have been a few people that have made their endorsements for DeSantis. Congressman Thomas Massey has, which really disappoints me.
Oh man.
But actually it doesn't disappoint me. I'm just surprised. But Thomas Massey had that strange take about E-Verify, which Walsh hates Trump, then Walsh will probably go for DeSantis. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah, probably.
But I don't know if he's made.
And he's on the payroll of Little Ben, so
that's so true.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, they're not I feel like, okay, you know how you were saying that DeSantis was campaigning long before this date, obviously, right? Does that complicate my thesis that DeSantis is being led by the tail? That he's sort of like being forced into this? There's an authenticity to it that maybe he probably doesn't even want to run, but it's like, oh, well,
there are people telling him he can do it. I don't know if Casey's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if Casey's Macbeth analogy will hold up, but there's a lot of truth to it, I think.
Yeah.
But good night, Mr. Caracol. I hope we'll see you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, bro.
But no, go ahead.
Like, you gotta want to have the presidency. You have to like want it with all your might.
He doesn't sound like he wants it.
Exactly.
That's my concern. He doesn't sound like he wants it. Like, if I were running, I'm sorry, if I wanted to be the president of the United States, you would at least think that I sounded like I want the job. I want to rule. And it's just like, there's none of that fire in him at all. There's nothing there.
There's none of like Trump's descent from.
There's no descent from Trump Tower with American flags all over me, telling me that I'm going to make this country great again. I'm descending again, like he's playing into that messianicism.
He's Zarathustra coming down from
the mountain. He's descending from the holy place, and he's saying, "I'm going to make this country great again." But the holy place
that he built, though, Trump Tower.
My tabernacle that I've built, I am descending from it. Yeah. That, and Trump can pronounce his last name correctly instead of having different pronunciations for it in 3 different videos. There's no Simpson episode predicting DeSantis. Lol.
Oh man, was the descent from the elevator Trump Tower? Or was it
Trump
Mar-a-Lago?
Tower? It was Trump Tower. He announced in New York.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
In June.
But see, in the Imperial City, the Imperial
City, the heartland of American capital.
Yeah.
And he announces that I'm going to take a spear to you. I will defeat this Goliath. Yeah, it's so true. But again, only time will tell. Again, this is all hot news. We're all just reacting. I will occasionally look in on the election as the year plays out, but I don't think we'll have a lot of dedicated political episodes.
Yeah. DeSantis should come out to the Our Lady Peace song. That is the was it Our Lady Peace, or was it the Chris Benoit theme?
I'm not sure.
Benoit theme. Was it Our Lady Peace? Yeah, Our Lady Peace, whatever. There you go. Yeah. That's what DeSantis should come out to the Chris Benoit Our Lady Peace song when he does a rally.
If he ever does them.
Oh, I shouldn't say that because Chris Benoit did that in Florida. He was living in Florida, I think.
Yeah.
Was it Florida or Winnipeg? No, I think he moved to Florida from Winnipeg because because all of the WWE Performance Center and everything is in Florida. So,
but we're not getting a Dark DeSantis.
No,
we're not getting like Dark Brandon sucks, but I mean, like, you know, at least Laser Eyes Joe Biden licking ice cream has more political energy and attention getting than DeSantis did on that space.
Him putting on the glasses, being told to put
Listen,
on the glasses.
Jack. You know,
this is Dark
I knew he was a carpetbagger. Oh, unfathomably based.
Oh man!
But shall we get to the supers?
Yeah, let's get to the supers.
All right. We are now on to the super chats. The Digital Archipelago is supported by viewers like you, ensuring that shitposting, political analysis, and cultural commentary can continue for 3 hours or more on end every Thursday at 2:15 p.m. Eastern. And with this, we now are on to the super chats. I'll start with the Entropy ones first, and then we will go down the line. I love the fact that StreamYards now auto stars the super chats. It's great. Jay Ford for $40 US.
Whoa!
Thank you so much, sir. He says coal mines are much more profitable than salt mines nowadays.
True.
Oh, that's true. At least in coal mines, I can find gems and great fuel, whereas salt mines, not so much. Sam153 for $10 US says, great Digital Archipelago, gents. Gives a millennial a lot to think on.
Nice.
Much appreciated. Darth Kilhoon for $3. I know, he's such a generous gent. I don't know, man, I don't know if I actually want to read that one out loud. It's playing off of the white, libertarian guys with Asian wives meme.
What does it say if you can clean it up?
If a let's say if someone marries a Castiza Latina GF, then he's technically not a traitor. According to the media, the Japanese are Caucasian, so don't feel bad, right-wing chuds.
Whoa!
Well, there's a take.
I love how the Atlantic thinks that like Japanese people are honoraries. That's incredible.
Unfathomably based.
What a world we live in.
What a world we live in, indeed. Volpez for €5 says, Gio, we have to do that space on Chulhan soon.
Sure.
It will be fun and good. Wrote a paper on his views on pain.
Maybe next week. I mean, he talks about pain in this book, The Palliative Society.
Yeah.
So maybe next week we can work.
I think it was one of the earliest streams we ever did together was on my channel, like in 2021, talking about pain and overcoming
That's
it.
right.
Very early time. Luthemplar for $5 US says they're gonna
$5.
They're gonna run a coal train.
Oh, that's brutal, man.
Glow in the dark for $5. I'm not reading. Well, so the race car now begins. Everyone will have to become race cars to win. Let's hope they keep it civil this year. What a very glow in the dark comment, good sir. We appreciate it. John Carter for $4.99 US. And a would you rather. Oh Lord. Dawn and
this
Melania,
is a good one.
Ron and Casey DeSantis and Ted and Heidi Cruz. Would you rather? Well, I have to like judge the wives.
Does he mean like a train, like three-way?
I'm assuming so.
Let me see what Heidi Cruz looks like.
I don't remember what she looks like.
Because I wouldn't want to like, I don't know, be in the same
managing
room.
Director at Goldman Sachs.
Oh, evil. I'm gonna go with I don't know, who wouldn't want to have sex with Donald Trump though. I mean, in this, not like with him, but like he'd be a good tag team partner, I guess.
I mean, if there's someone who I'm going to high five in an Eiffel Tower, I mean, I'd rather do it with the 45th president of the United States than
you know what's so funny is like when
this is awful.
You know what's so funny is when Gavin McInnes used to talk about Shane, who ran Vice, who took Vice from him. He's like, yeah, me and Shane used to fuck girls all the time. He'd never admit this nowadays, but we used to fuck girls together all the time. I'm like, oh my God. Like, that's the ultimate revenge. Imagine, like, now that Vice is bankrupt too, it's like, yeah.
That's just
like,
bad.
That's terrible. Like, oh man. I don't know. I'd pick Trump.
Again, one of my favorite usernames on here, Mr. Postnut Clarity for $11 Canadian. I don't spank my son, but I have held him upside down by his ankles. I asked him, who is the strongest in this house? He laughs and loves it, but the message needs to be sent. Kids test
wholesome.
Boundaries. That's wholesome and a good way to sort of remind him.
As long as you're not like swinging him around and like throwing him against the wall.
Yeah, you're not having a roundhouse moment like Brad Pitt at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh
You're just
God.
being a dad.
That's not
That's not bad.
just don't drop him.
Yeah, just don't drop
God.
him. Please don't. You'll end up like me.
Oh.
Glow in the Dark for $5 US is amazing that those in power, no matter how fake and gay, are still in power. It seems that they will use their power to affect you. Imagine that. Find all
I
you
love
want.
gay.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna use, like you said, it's like the issue of race, right? You don't have to see race, but race will see you. Power can be fake and gay, and you can point it out how much you want, but they're still in power, and you're not. And so,
well, the race thing, it's like the left is unironically more correct than the mainstream because it's like that's I feel, but then again, that's like a 2010s talk debate where it's like the Dave Rubin centrists of the world would be like, I don't see race, I'm colorblind, but colorblindness is erasing injustice. Then you have to see race because race is fundamentally a part of our identity. Oh, but is that
2015
true, right?
Sargon, is that you?
Yeah, but race is fundamentally a part of identity. But what if I'm a white person? No, Sargon. But then that's being a hypocrite. Like, no, but it's funny how like those Sargon points like still hold up of like, I don't know, on this question, I feel like, yeah, it's okay.
I know.
How should I put this? Like, of course you don't immediately see race as soon as you interact with someone like on an individual level, like, right? But
yeah,
it's like at the same time, yeah, of course race is a reality and that it is a fundamentally a part of who you are. But then the same time you have to realize that it's a rhetorical trick of the left wing. Like, Sargon is correct in that. He was correct in saying that it's a rhetorical trick, and it is a rhetorical trick because it's saying that, the average like boomer conservative does believe in like civil rights America and that Ronald, that up in like, even Ronald Reagan embraced, where it's like, I believe in the merit and content of their character rather than
I know. I heard merit, and I was just like, oh man, we got full JPB bros. It's so over steroids.
Merit. No, but that's what I mean. But the world has fundamentally changed, though, and that's the thing. Like, it is true. Like the left is more correct than the mainstream. So
I will say this though, Carl has significantly grown up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Luthemplar for $5 US says, for all we know, this was a play by Elon to get Trump back on Twitter.
Ooh, interesting.
Why not? I would.
For $5.
For $5, he's illustrating the need that Elon wants to make this fucking Twitter thing profitable.
Oh, Trump would too, eh?
Oh, Trump has to, and Trump's already said that he will come back. Your Kino will come back, folks, and the dopamine hits will go nuts, and people will soy jack over the return of Trump.
What will be the first tweet of his?
Guess whose favorite president is back on Twitter?
Yeah, but
something like that. I don't know.
Well, Nightmare Vision was correct where he said it would be something anticlimactic, but then when Trump gets like his old bearings back on Twitter, then you'll see the Kino and Nectar flow.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. But
his first tweets will probably be like, "Guess who's back?"
Something like that. Yeah. Machiavelli sucks to go for $4.99 US. We met at a psych ward. Something in common. So there you go.
There you go.
Machiavelli sucks to go again for $4.99. The hot chicks go to recovery class at church.
Oh my god!
Those are the ones you might want to stay away from.
Dasha goes to recovery class.
Fried by fluoride starts.
You know what's funny is that Howling Mutant really burned her today because it was like the spanking discourse where she's like, "Yeah, my parents spanked me, and I turned out fine." And the Howling Mutant responded with, "Well, everyone else hit it. Might as well."
Oh my god!
He disintegrated.
Was this a reply or quote tweet?
It was a reply.
Okay, let me go to replies. I'll find it later. Yeah. That's just it's so good.
So
good. Brent Taylor for $5 US. Geo, can you talk about the movie Porky's? It really helped me understand my old man.
I heard of Porky's. My old man watched that back in the day, but I've never watched Porky's. I should. It's funny because I remember the boys that work for my old man. They were doing this like job out in like the middle of nowhere once. They were paid by this company to do this concrete slab, and they went to this like strip club that actually was like Porky's. Like it was out in the middle of nowhere. And I've never watched Porky's though. Maybe I should.
Well, I guess you should, maybe.
Yeah.
If your dad's seen it, that's a reason as ever.
Yeah.
Luthemplar says most elections are won by filing in a ballot for the elderly and offering to mail it in for them if they sign it legal and effective. Yeah, I mean This was the one thing that Mike Cernovich had a good point about, was the elderly home ballot harvesting bit, because that's definitely true.
That's what Republicans need to tap into.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Fishy Frenzy for £5 says the Dr. Fauci dialogues are still grievously underexploited. What are your guys' favorite Giga Chad dialogues?
I like Fishy Frenzy's like recent Fauci posting. I retweeted a few of them. I mean, Giga Chad, I feel like the Giga Chads are being edited too much. You know, they have the Charles Manson symbol of peace on his forehead, and there's like Zoomer Giga Chad. Like, no, the simple, clean John Winthrop original Giga Chad dialogues are the best. Okay. Atrazine Groiper had really great ones. Even Lord Miku had really great ones. I feel like Lord Miku's Keith Rainier posting was probably, better than the Giga Chad ones. But no, I'm a fan of the original John Winthrop Giga Chad dialogues. I think that's like, you can't beat the classics.
Yeah, the classics are wholeheartedly good. Although
Yeah.
I do enjoy the drunk driving Giga Chad ones.
Oh yeah.
As well as the scholarly edits, I should say, when it comes to the issues of the news of the day. But again, the John Winthrop ones are absolute classics.
Because I feel like if you edit Giga Chad too much, it's becoming like too specific and too in group. Whereas like John Winthrop,
what's that Walter Benjamin bit about the reproduction of an image?
Oh, true.
Jonathan Eubanks for $5 says that
$5
fatherlessness hit. Love for you, brothers. God bless. Well, God bless you too, Mr. Eubanks.
Thank you. You're paying for our love as Earthsat's parasocial fathers right now.
That's true.
You have two daddies, Jonathan.
I hope that doesn't get clipped.
Oh, that's terrible.
Brando Johnson for $20 US. Mike Cole sends his regards. Great stream as always, Chance. DeSantis represents a complete lack of libidinal energy and no pull whatsoever.
100%. Thank you, Brando. Thank you, Mike of Paul, for $20.
Well, Mike of Paul, I look forward to meeting you in less than a month now at the upcoming event in Tennessee. So he'll be speaking there at the Sildings Conference. I will be speaking there. So you get to meet some new and old talent as well.
Did you see the Giga Chad Fisher King?
I did. That's probably the latest Giga Chad edit that I actually really like. I
don't know why people rag on I like Fisher King. He's a great guy.
Fisher King's great. I don't know why anyone shits on him.
I think because like they think he's boring or whatever, like he's pedantic, but like Fisher King, like I know the joke is like posting like banal observations, but it's like no, Fisher King actually does come up with like a lot of original concepts and ideas that are quite fascinating. I mean, I couldn't do what Fisher King does. Like I don't know, like he can be in a bit of the dry side, like especially in Twitter Spaces. But no, I like Fisher King. I would definitely put him on content
because occasionally he will come out and just snap, and it's
good. He told Dasha once on a space. I was there on my alt that he would quote word I can't say on YouTube, Dasha in a place where the sun don't shine to make it clean. That was incredible. The way he just like blurted it out, and Dasha was like right there. It was incredible. But no, Fisher King's a normal guy. He's like married and everything. He's just a normal dude.
But he sends another one. Says also Allogenes or Allegenis and I are going to have a big musical number released tomorrow. Stay tuned. We'll be sure to follow Mike of Pole on Twitter as well.
Or it's another diss track.
Yeah. Who knows? But again, be sure to follow Mike of Pole on Twitter. Glow in the Dark for $10. Do you like how the investigation into the FBI ended? Yes, they broke the law and the FBI used resources on a political hit job that they knew was fake, but no punishment.
$10. What was that recent FBI investigation?
That would be the Durham report.
What's that about?
About like the whole FBI misuse and to say like Crossfire Hurricane and how the Clinton campaign actually did use a bunch of like bullshit to say that Trump was aligned with Russia. And so all of the right-wing Twitter bros who were right about this in 2015 and 2016 were
confirmed. Got banned.
And many of them were banned or imprisoned. Were confirmed to be right once again. And so like asking the FBI or asking anyone to investigate the FBI and actually arrest them is not going to happen. So yeah, I totally, things that don't surprise me for $10.
Well, it's like the convoy inquiry. It's like, did you expect Trudeau to, lock him up? No, Trudeau, of course, was going to get away with it. Come on,
like, let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
And then Entropy had a couple more that were sent in just a minute ago. Sam153 says, will Ted Cruz run again? Doesn't he love collecting the delegates? I doubt Ted Cruz will run again anytime soon.
He's too tainted.
And if Ted Cruz runs for anything, he should. I mean, I don't know how long his Senate career will last, given how close he was to losing in 2018. And we're getting close to his... holy shit, he's up for re-election, actually. It's been? No, it hasn't been. I mean, he'll be up for re-election soon, so I don't know what'll happen in that respect. Because, yeah, he's up for re-election in 2024, and I don't know who he's going to run against. So...
He might get slaughtered, they say.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised.
Yeah.
The question...
Even Republicans don't like him anymore.
So, I mean, like, the real question will become... will someone primary him, or will he... Yeah, he's done for. I agree. Like, I really thought he was going to lose to O'Rourke. I really thought that. I don't know if O'Rourke's going to run for Senate again. If it's a rematch, I think Cruz will lose. Like,
but they're two like unlikable guys, though.
Well, yeah, I agree. They're both genuinely unlikable, but I mean,
Cruz just has the baggage of being unlikable.
Cruz has the baggage of being unlikable, but Cruz has the advantage of having a half decent political machine. I mean, so does O'Rourke. Let's not kid ourselves. But O'Rourke has stayed relatively mum since his failed gubernatorial bid, his failed presidential bid, his failed Senate bid.
Nobody cares about him.
Fourth time's a charm? Maybe. Who knows?
He doesn't have the same political machine of like those underlying, like maybe candidates that the Democrats have, like Agent Buttigieg.
Well,
like,
maybe they'll have that fat slob Gen Z person run for office pretty soon.
Oh man, the one from Texas.
Yeah.
Oh hey, I can't believe the Dallas Stars are getting fucking slaughtered though. Speaking of getting slaughtered, their captain Ben, he like took a 2-game suspension for like sticking a guy when he was on the ground. And the fans in Dallas, they were so pissed they got blown out 4-0 by Las Vegas. They started throwing stuff on the ice, and they had to like call the second period off.
Unfathomably based.
Yeah, it was pretty based. But of course, like all the hockey people, all the soy-lennial Canadian hockey fans are like, I can't believe the Dallas Stars fans are throwing things on the ice. Oh, this is unsportsmanlike. It's like, bro, they're getting blown out. What do you want?
You'll love to see it. You'll love to see it. Owen Zaleski for $5 US says, thank you guys again for the wonderful advice and inspiration that you guys gave me to start my Substack. I'm trying to write more stories / poetry. Any advice for posting your work consistently and getting feedback on what you write? God bless. I mean, post consistently, share with your friends.
Yeah.
And like-minded fellows. Like, I'm in 5 different group chats where we
share
all
with
just
bigger
sort of
posters.
Share with bigger posters. And I mean, if you want us to read your work, I mean, you can always send a super chat with a link or whatever. We'll go read it and we'll give you commentary.
There you go.
And I mean, like, if you're not on Twitter or say you're on Facebook or whatever, like, share it within your friend group, share it within people you know, share it with larger audiences, and always ask for feedback. Always be polite in the feedback you receive. Yeah. I'm in like 4 different group chats where we all just critique each other's like positions, takes, and thought out arguments for X, Y, and Z. And I mean, that's you really have to have networks more than anything. Like, posting is great, but unless you have friends to agree and amplify that content, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, like I think the way you go about it is like if you're approaching a bigger poster, a bigger person, and you want them to read your work, just like be nice about it, be courteous, and don't like I know some people like they'll freak out if like if you don't respond to them, or they'll like be obsessed with like trying to get your attention. Like, don't be like that. I mean, even if you're like doing that, do it in sort of like a Fisher King, Mike of Paul way, where like the schizo posting and like trying to like get your attention's funny. So that will also reward you if you're like being a nag about it. Because like Mike of Paul, he'll like create a whole diss track about you to get your attention. And that's like, that's funny. That's high effort, right? But if you're just being like,
it's a high effort shit post.
Yeah, but if you're like being naggy about it, then the bigger accounts, they'll be like, you know what, like piss off. Like, it's not just, like just shoot your shot. I mean, hey, what can they say besides no, right? Like, I mean, it's no big deal if they say no. Just like, what I'm saying is like, don't bother, like, don't be obsessed with like trying to get someone's attention. In other words,
Yeah.
just like, be like a normal person, just like touch grass and be a normal guy. Like, no, but it's unironically true. Like a lot of people, I've seen people over the years where when they want to get someone like a bigger account's attention, they'll like rag them and they'll become like a secret hater afterwards. They'll be like, fuck this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like if they'll like get burned, right? They'll be like, oh, this fucking guy didn't give me the time of day. It's like, that's not a good look. You know what I mean? So, yeah. Default says I campaigned for Greg Abbott one summer. The Texas GOP destroying the political machine by not keeping their constituents supported.
So
not funding.
true. So true. The Texas GOP is fucked. In that respect. And then last but not least, Glow in the Dark for $5 US says, how long will Trudeau be the leader of Canada? Another term, or will he declare himself prime minister for life?
Prime minister for life. No, I think that if he really screws up next year, if there is a significant economic downturn, then it can only work in the favor of Palavra. But realistically, I feel like he's going to be there at least another 3 years. So, I mean, who knows? I mean, he can't bank on his old man's name forever. But I mean, just like realistically, I know as blackpilling as it sounds, he's there for at least 2 or 3 years, maybe less, depending on how bad things get and depending on how appealing Palavra is to Quebecois in particular. If Palavra can manage to like sway Quebec people, then he has a good shot. But no, I mean the media and political machine is always going to be against the Conservatives. So realistically, the next 2 or 3 years, I can imagine Trudeau withering the storm for at least another 2 years. So that's my That's my very, very conservative, level-headed prediction of Canadian politics. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Donald Trump gave me 100% correct. Trudeau can win based just on the fact that the Tories suck. They suck ass, okay? I mean, I want to desperately vote for Bernier again, but I don't know. I think if things get really bad, then people are going to hold their nose and vote for Palavra. But for the next 2 years, yeah, it's going to be Trudeau land still, because there's no incentive for Jagmeet Singh not to be the sort of like, the sort of like prop for Trudeau's campaign. Because technically Trudeau has a minority government. He's just being propped up by the NDP. And I think as like average lay people, like backbenchers in the NDP, if they realize they're getting conned by the Liberals and they're getting nothing in return, that might change things. But in terms of the very tippy top, Jagmeet Singh certainly doesn't want to stab Trudeau in the back. But there are NDP insiders who are probably realizing, like guys who have been there since Jack Layton was there, who are realizing that, you know what, Trudeau is basically selling us a bill of goods and they're using us as a whore to help him get like a stealth majority government. And even though the NDP is getting nothing in return, but there are a lot of people in the NDP who don't care, because you know why? It prevents the Conservatives from getting in there. So, Jagmeet will stay with Trudeau as long as the political machine allows him to, unfortunately. So there you go.
Well, Gio, what do you have going on this week and next week?
Next week, I'll try to get another content minded, although I have to build up a backlog and just been busy writing. I have to get back to genre reviews. Maybe next week I'll put out a genre reviews. But this week I had my good friend Scott Mannion on, and we talked about many things from Young to Christianity to Britain to British politics, you name it. It was a very great discussion. I'm going to be on his show soon again. And yeah, so other than that, I'm just busy writing my book. I'll probably be busy next month. So we'll see what happens. Yeah.
All right. Well,
what do you got going on this Saturday?
I will be live this Saturday with our good friend Christopher Sandbatch as we go over the history of America's first foreign policy foray into the world, the war with the Barbary States. And we get to talk about a variety of things such as Thomas Jefferson, white slavery, and more. And then I'll be finishing up book club with shortly thereafter. We'll be finishing Alan Bloom's Closing of the American Mind, 1987. I'll have a new video out on the 31st. And of course, the Digital Archipelago will be on Gio's channel this week. And so anytime that the Digital Archipelago is usually on your channel, I try to put out a new video or something. So yeah, plenty of good stuff coming up down the pipeline in the future. There'll be some articles. There's a new article already out on Substack talking about the preliminary thoughts I had with DeSantis's announcement. I'll hopefully have another one out very soon, either tomorrow or this coming week. But yes, plenty of stuff that is in the pipeline for you all. And then, of course, I will be at the US event later next month, so it'll be a good time nevertheless. So with that, we will see you all next Thursday. I hope that you all have a fantastic rest of your week and weekend. See you all this Saturday. Go check out Gio's channel. His links are down below in the description for supporting either of us on Subscribe to our Patreon. And take care, and God bless.
One last announcement, Cindy, about the ads. I've just recently updated my Spotify, my Anchor / Spotify. So all the Digital Archipelago streams on my channel are on there, and of course they're ad free. So I just, YouTube on the live streams piles on the ads because that's where people get the most ad revenue. So Cindy, if you want to go to, Anchor or Spotify, it's on there. I got it. The most current episode is even on there as well, if I recall. So yeah, I was being lazy with my Odyssey and my Anchor when it comes to Digital Archipelagos. So, but it's all there. So yeah, goodbye, gents. God bless. Goodbye. Too sweet.
See you, gents.
Yeah.